Yeah, 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 yeah.
Don't just make your fucking beats.
I'm about my game. Live by the rules, we don't play the same. That's on my grave, that's on my name. I'm saying, I'm about my paper, about my game. I'm about my game.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Thomas Christopher of the League Winners here with another episode of College Football Now. Last week was my birthday and wasn't able to do the show, so I do apologize for that, but we do have an action-packed show this week. Unfortunately, there won't be any high school highlights like we normally have, featuring some of the up-and-coming high school recruits that are going to be college football players because this show is going to be packed. With that said, I just want to dive right onto it. I got two very special people in the waiting room right now. I'm going to bring the first one on. He's going to be my co-host and my anchor man, my right-hand man on this one. You guys know him, love him, see us together all the time, every week. That is Brandyn Pokrass, and I'm bringing him right on. Brandyn, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Back to relief duty as usual with you running the ship, but it was very fun running the last edition of the show, and very excited to talk a lot of college football because since the last time you've been on the show, a lot of stuff has happened.
Yes, that's an understatement to say the least. By the way, I appreciate you taking the time out to do that. Make sure you guys give Brandyn a follow at BPOK24 on Twitter and Instagram. With that said, we do have our first guest in the waiting room. He's currently the New York Jets beat writer and columnist for the New York Daily News. I really appreciate him taking the time out to join us on tonight's show. And it is Antwan Staley. Antwan, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time out. Obviously, first week of the college football playoffs. And you used to be on the beat for the Oregon Ducks, who actually take on the James Madison Dukes in a very interesting matchup in Austin. In Austin, Oregon. Autzen, you're right.
Austin Stadium, like Eugene.
Austin
Oregon.
Stadium, yes. Eugene, yes. Yes. And they have a really electric team. You know, Dante Moore, quarterback, the Korean Moore, wide receiver. They have a lot of young stable in the running back room as well. What have been your thoughts watching this Oregon team this season as they head into their home opening playoff game?
But there was some injuries there, obviously to the receiving core too as well. And I feel like Dante Moore at times has had to carry them. I think he's done a good job with that, you know, and big wins, obviously, over Penn State. And, you know, I know the Indiana game was a bit of a blip there, but, you know, I feel like he's starting to get better. And now Oregon's starting to get a little bit healthier, especially come playoff time. And, you know, I think this is definitely a big game. Obviously, you know, playoffs is a big game, but you know, I think it's also an opportunity for them to kind of get some momentum, something they didn't necessarily have last year where they just, you know, went strictly into the Ohio State game. And then that's a tough draw, especially, you know, early against a team that's as talented as them. And now they can get a bit of a tune-up game before, you know, possibly playing Texas Tech down there at the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. They're finally starting to get the swings. As you mentioned, they did have some injuries that they kind of had to overcome in some close games down the stretch as they got into this situation that they find themselves in hosting a college football playoff game. Dante Moore, I kind of want to talk about him because he's had a fantastic year. There's a lot of chatter about him potentially staying, potentially going. Do you think that he ends up staying another year with the Ducks, or do you think because of where the draft class is right now with Julian saying not available, Ty Simpson's likely to go back as well, and a lot of the other stars going into this season haven't really performed expectations. You know, Cade Klubnik, Nussmeier hasn't looked great either. Even Lenora Sellers, he's going back to school. What do you think ends up happening with Dante Moore?
I think, well, early on, it seemed like he was really going to lean towards to go back to school, but just kind of hearing things just, you know, here and there, it seems like he, you know, especially after Will Stein, his offensive coordinator, ended up taking the job in Kentucky, it seems like it's a possibility, more of a possibility of him going out, and I think he should. I mean, I don't know if his stock is going to get any higher than what it is currently. You know, I think he's a top 5 pick, and then if you come out next year, you don't know where that's going to look like. I mean, there's a ton of quarterbacks that's going to come out. You don't necessarily know how you're going to fit into that. I still think he would be a first-round pick. He might be number 1 overall, but there's also a chance that, you know, maybe he slides down and costs himself some money in that rookie slot, as far as cap room and, where you're drafted. So I think he goes no lower than 5 right now, just simply because I think you got teams like the Jets, you got the Browns, you got the Raiders that are out there that desperately need quarterbacks. They're not going to all pass on him. And, if you're a team like the Jets too, maybe you can wait, and possibly get a guy like Dante Moore, who I like Mendoza. I think Mendoza fits the Jets offense and what he likes to do a little bit more. However, I think Dante Moore is probably my QB1 just simply because of his athleticism. And, I think like his ceiling is a lot higher than Mendoza. No disrespect to Fernando. I think he can be a really good quarterback, possibly in the mold of Jared Goff. But you're talking about a guy like Dante Moore. He can be, I think the sky's the limit for a guy like that. We don't know how great he can be just simply because he has all the skill sets you're looking for in a quarterback.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said Jared Goff because that's what my comp has been for Fernando Mendoza since I saw him last year with Cal. Brandyn, I kind of want to talk to you about that too. Interesting quarterback situation this year. What are your thoughts on Dante Moore?
Yeah, very similar to Antwan. I think that things have changed for Dante Moore because of everything else around him. Right when we start off this year and you're looking at things, it's like, all right. If Sellers does what he's supposed to do, and Klubnik is what everyone thinks he is, and Nussmeier, and, obviously Fernando Mendoza had the hype, but he wasn't at the level of those guys. That's already 4 quarterbacks. If everyone takes care of business, there's a real world where, Dante Moore has to weigh, all right, where do I stack up against the rest of the guys in this class versus where am I going to be after another year of development at Oregon with everything going on? And obviously, we didn't know that Will Stein was going to leave and take the Kentucky job. The college football calendar is a crazy one, to say the least. And things can change so fast. But I think with Nussmeier severely disappointing at LSU and the injuries, I think Ty Simpson falling off the back half of the year. I think Lenore Sellers going back to school. And really, a lot of other factors that we still don't know yet with this quarterback class. There's a pathway for Dante Moore to be 1-1, right? If a team likes Dante Moore better than Fernando Mendoza, there is a pathway for him to go first overall. And when you look down the pipeline at the 2027 class, there's not only the guys that were supposed to come out this year that aren't, but you have a guy like a CJ Clark who could take another step forward. You have a guy in, let's say, I don't know, DJ Lagway lands in LSU, and he lights it up at LSU. There's a shot that he could come out. Arch Manning, obviously the name that everyone's going to talk about, hasn't been as publicized. He's taken some very big strides down the stretch in this season. What does it look like in his second full year in that system and as the starter? And then there's names that are going to pop up all over the place. A big name that I think he's draft eligible because of the redshirt situation. I don't know if he would declare. Drew Mestamaker. What if he completely lights it up again and now you're Dante Moore, and you're staring at 4 guys that could feasibly go in the first round, a la the Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, Drake May class. I just think it lines up very nicely for Dante Moore to go pro, and I think that there are more than enough teams that would take him in the top 10 of the draft, let alone the top 5 of the draft, to really warrant that.
Yeah, I think, and just kind of to piggyback on your point real quick about that, I think it's some hesitation about the lack of, starts he's had, whether you talk about UCLA and Oregon. But, I think the way you can combat that is don't throw him in the fire right away, which, I don't think you should really do that for any of these quarterbacks, to be quite honest with you, whether you're the Raiders or the Browns or the Jets in that case too, because I feel like the Jets might be a better situation because you have a really good offensive line around them, but, you still don't have a lot of skill position parts around him outside of Garrett Wilson. So I think you want those guys to kind of watch a little bit and just get observe the game and the speed of the NFL. And then it becomes a certain point, kind of what the Patriots did with Drake May. Then you play him like maybe after a month or 2, and then maybe he kind of takes off from there.
Yeah, I'm so the lack of patience that teams have now just with quarterbacks it's kind of like a detriment to what ends up happening with the careers. You see guys start out slow and just get pushed to the side, and how many guys have like resurrected their career after having that tough stretch? I mean, Sam Darnold's an easy guy who was thrown to the fire. Obviously, this different situation. I believe Saleh wanted to keep him, but
it was but they were butting heads to keep him. But I think part of the problem is like timeline for the quarterback is not lined up with the coach. And then when it's not aligned, then you got a guy that's trying to save his rear end and then he does not doing the best for the team and the organization. He's doing the best for him. So you have to line up. Those two have to be aligned. If they're not aligned with one another, and if you got a guy that's on the hot seat, then it could be a bad look. You've seen that with the Bears several times too, when you talk about Justin Fields and also Caleb Williams as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you said the guy kind of like saving his butt, because it seems like that's happening from the NFL into the college football side. We're seeing a lot of people just kind of jump up, take jobs. I mean, I wanted to ask you, I'm very curious to hear your opinion, like the way the college football calendar is set up now, the scheduling between the bowl games, the transfer portal, coaches being able to leave before the end of the season. How effective do you think that's going to be, like, going forward? How do you think that's going to, if it's going to change, could it change?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's always evolving. And Brandyn and I kind of had this conversation offline a little bit. But yeah, I think we don't necessarily know what it's going to be in 5 years, because it's probably going to, I mean, everything just came on the fly with NIL. Like everything was just so quick. And, I think the detriment to that was nobody's regulating it properly. Like it's no rules. It's like the Wild Wild West. And, you watch all this stuff to happen really quickly to the portal and NIL, and, you get what you get when what you get is like, guys leaving faster than what they're supposed to. I mean, look at the Michigan job right now. It's kind of a bit of a mess, and because, the Shabal Moore situation. And then in addition to that, now you're trying to find a coach before the transfer portal opens up at the beginning of the year. And, now the clock is ticking. So they got to hire somebody. I had to think before Christmas. You think, because, if you're not, then it's going to be an exodus of players, and then you have to replace those players. And Michigan is still trying to be a competitor in the Big Ten. So I think it should change. We personally honest, especially after this Lane Kiffin situation. I mean, it was just a bit of a mess, and him going to a rival. And I understand why Ole Miss didn't let him coach there, because, LSU, Ole Miss, I mean, they play each other for Magnolia Bowl every year or every other year, whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I mean, you can't it's not a good look to have them go to a rival. But, yeah, college football needs to sit down and, like, get some, better clarity on some of these, like the transfer portal, and also just, get a hold on this a little bit better. That way you don't have players just leaving, and also coaches leaving just kind of in the middle of the night.
Yeah. I think to add to that too, to add to Antwan's point, this all stems from the NCAA, the governing body, or at least the body that's supposed to govern this sport, completely abdicating responsibility for years and years and trying to not solve the problems, but kick the can down the road. And then basically what you have happen is the NIL ruling comes down, it's put into place, and because the NCAA didn't prep anything, and didn't actually put real rules into place, you end up in a situation where, as Antwan said, you're trying to figure this out on the fly. You're trying to figure out contracts on the fly, which is never going to work and has not worked and will continue not to work. You're trying to figure out regulations and market caps and all these different things that schools are going to find a way around, to put it simply. Schools are always going to have a way to work around the rules until A, the rules are actually universal for everybody involved, and B, there's actual consequences for breaking those rules. But until then, like Antwan said, this is the Wild Wild West. Things are going to change in 2 years, let alone 5. It's just, it all could have been a lot easier of a transition to something that always needed to happen. But because the NCAA is the NCAA, we're here.
And it sucks because it sucks for smaller school teams. Like, I went to East Carolina for undergrad, and then it sucks for them because now you're essentially like a minor league team or minor league conference for the big Power 4 conferences, because, if a team like Michigan offers more money, you're going to take it. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. So you have to factor that in too. And also where it comes in, the bowl games. We have way too many bowl games. Like 42 bowl games is ridiculous, especially nowadays where kids are opting out and you can't even field, a team properly to, compete for a bowl game. So now you're getting these 5 and 7 teams that are competing, trying to get this paycheck. And, ultimately, I think what's going to happen is they're going to expand the playoff, but also have way to revolve those bowl games around it. And then the other bowl games are just going to kind of, get to the wayside, and that'll be it too. But, we can all see it coming. Like, they're going to expand even more. I wouldn't be surprised that by the end of the day, they end up expanding to 24 teams.
That would be crazy.
I don't want them to, but I think they're going to at some point, because greed always wins at the end.
Yeah, I agree about that. There's the big thing, like they only invited the G5 when it was still the G5, so they wouldn't get sued. Do you think if they expand, do you think it's still just one guaranteed? I know it's not guaranteed, but one guaranteed G5 spot, or do they open that up to like the CFP rankings and go from there? How do you think they end up handling that situation?
They should, but you already got teams like conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten already trying to keep those guys out, like the little guys out, like Boise State. So I don't know if they're gonna. Maybe you get the 2. Maybe, I guess, 2 out of 24 isn't that, isn't great, but it's better than 1. So maybe you get to that point where, you have 2 group of 5 teams in there, maybe like a Boise State or, somebody from the Sun Belt or whatever the case may be, American. So, but, they're going to try to keep all those teams out, because that's why they changed the bye situation, where the conference winner got a bye, because they saw what really none of the teams won that had a bye last week, but everybody just listed Boise State like, oh, well, they're not supposed to be there. But in reality, none of those teams were successful in the first place anyway. So it wasn't just the Boise State thing. It was just a situation where the top teams all lost.
Yeah. I think it's very tough, too, because, this is – I feel like the bowl games are a part of what makes college football unique, and I feel like they can't go away. Like, as I would really work to make sure they don't go away. How you arrive at that point where – you ensure that teams are going to play and making sure that guys aren't opting out, that's a whole different discussion. But I always come back to, especially when it comes to the non-autonomy conferences, it's always, they're not the same level of football. They're not the same level of football until the transfer portal comes and all the P4 or whatever autonomy, whatever you want to call those schools, raid the rosters to fill out their rosters for the next season. And then, you have an American Conference Championship where the head coach of Tulane and the head coach of North Texas both already have jobs. And guess what? An autonomy conference and SEC, however you want to describe it, right? It's always screw these schools, screw them until it's time to improve their schools. And then they're always coming down to those levels. Yep. That's always what I come back to. It's like the argument is so disingenuous. And it's just so it's basically expecting the wider college football audience to not actually recognize the on-field product and not actually recognize what's going on, because it's I don't want to go as far to call it a scam, but it's obvious what they're doing, right? They only care about themselves. I mean, look at the private equity that's going on. That's going to have a whole world of consequences down the road for those schools. But if you want to keep trying to keep those schools out, then don't hire their coaches and take their players. That's where I'm always going to arrive with that. And that's why I think the conferences deserve a shot to get to the dance. And they shouldn't keep them out.
It's like Gonzaga and NCAA basketball. I mean, like they came with power, and what even what even in a big conference, really until now, like they're going to go and one. But yeah, I mean, in those schools you alluded to, North Texas and two, like those coaches, like Summerall's going to take some of those players to Florida. Like, he's going to take some of those players to Florida. And then the same thing, North Tech, like they're going to take some of those players to Oklahoma State too as well. I mean, that's just how it is. That's how you're trying to win as quickly as possible. And why not take the players that already know your system and that are really good in it up to your new school? Yeah,
it's also, I mean, they like to talk about the talent differential, but I'm pretty sure that same Tulane team beat the ACC conference champion. I'm just saying. So I mean, there's it's a lot closer than I guess I'll call mainstream sports media wants to make it to believe. Obviously, there's top teams that are kind of in a different level, but it's almost like the NFL. There's an aspect of any given Saturday, I guess we'll call it, in that regard. Antwan, before I get you out of here, because I know you're a busy man. And I just want to go quickly back to that Oregon JMU game because it is coming up. What are you looking for specifically on the Oregon side to take advantage of a James Madison team that has looked pretty good this season?
Well, basically, just get off to a fast start. I mean, you got to basically give them no hope, especially in this. You're playing a home game. It's going to be loud. Like I know how loud it is, especially personally in that building too. So like, it's going to be loud in there. You just definitely want to take, don't give them any kind of hope early. I expect, Dante Moore to have a really good game there. They, like I said, again, they are getting healthy, and I expect the pass rush to be very active too. We're talking about James Madison that likes to run the football pretty effectively too as well. And if you can stop that, then I think they have a chance to really blow this thing wide open too. So yeah, I think everybody's picking Oregon to win. I would be completely shocked that James Madison, no disrespect, were to go up in Austin and get the victory there. But I think ultimately you just want Dante Moore and really the defense in general just to be able to get off to a fast start, to be able to get after the quarterback, and also to rushing attack of James Madison, the Dukes.
Yeah, it's going to be very fascinating to see. I can't wait. College football college playoff football. If I could just speak correctly, it'd be all right. It's always an exciting time of the year, especially off the back of an Army-Navy game and a not so as impressive Boise State and Washington game. Wish I could take the time back from watching that game. But Antwan, before I let you out here, my friend, can you just let everybody know what's coming up for you, where they can find you out on your social media and any of your work?
You can find me at Antwan Staley, just my name, all spelled together, just all social media platforms. Let's also find my work at New York Daily News, and just winding down the rest of the Jet season, playing out the string. So, but yeah, we'll have some stuff there, some features on some of the players there too, including Austin McLemore, who's been a really big weapon for him. So
yes.
Yeah, you can check out my work there.
Yeah, make sure you guys are checking out Antwan's work. He does a fantastic job, even during the very rough stretch of Jets football that he's had to cover. Antwan, thank you so much for coming on, man. I truly appreciate you taking the time out.
All right, thank y'all.
Yep, you take care. That was Antwan Staley of the New York Daily News. You can find him at ANTWAN STALEY on Twitter, all bunched together. And he does fantastic work for the New York Daily News. We do have our next guest in the back room right there. He's the former editor of the Breeze Sports, and you can find him on his Substack, which I really do want people to try to go and find his work on his Substack. He does an excellent job. I've subscribed to there. It's Hayden Hundley, and I'm bringing him on right now. Hayden, how are you doing, my friend?
Really good, guys. Thank you guys for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I truly appreciate you taking the time out. Now, obviously, as we all know, as we've just been talking about, huge game for the Dukes this week as they go to Oregon to take on the Ducks. First off, what were your thoughts about James Madison getting into the college football playoff so soon after becoming an FBS team? I mean, it's kind of absurd, honestly.
Yeah, it's very absurd. I mean, we all knew that JMU had the potential to have a lot of success early, just being from Virginia. A lot of everyone in the Virginia community that has either followed FCS football or was kind of local there, close to the school, knew that they had a really good coaching staff there with Coach Signetti, and that they were able to have a lot of success earlier in the conference, like the Sun Belt, similar to what App State did, when they came from the FCS 8 or 5 years before that. And then there was that first game against Middle Tennessee State in 2021 or 2022. And they just dominated, and it was like, this is going to be the start to something that I think they can get very used to. This is that they can be early competitors in the Sun Belt. And now with a couple different coaching staffs coming in, now with Billy Napier coming in after Coach Chesney, I thought when I got on the beat that I would be covering the start of a new era of JMU football. And it was really just a bridge. JMU still just hasn't at the point yet, money-wise, to retain these elite coaching staffs. But it really says a lot about the athletic director change as well, from Jeff Bourne over to Matt Rohn, and the people that kind of pull the strings, that the names you don't really know, like the board of visitors amongst JMU, the administrators, the people that put a lot of time and find unique ways for a lot of money to flow into the athletic program at JMU that can maintain that success through different administration staffs, through different coaching staffs. And, the college football playoff is just going to boost that. It's going to bring more money to the program. And they're going to be able to, get a head start, so to speak, on their FBS journey.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to see, man. And I mean, they do get a tough draw, obviously, with Oregon, but there's
tough. Yeah.
There's something about the Dukes, man. I mean, it's great. So I wanted to ask you, obviously you've gotten to see the team. What are you looking for in order for James Madison to potentially come out with highway robbery steal of a game?
Yeah, JMU's calling card ever since they were a low FCS school that went up the tournament ranks on there, made runs there, and eventually became an FCS dominant team. They were always tougher and just better in the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football than a lot of other small schools, and that rang true in the Sun Belt when they came to the FBS. And that's kind of how they had a lot of success against UNC. It led to a lot of, obviously a lot of points in that game last year, and that's what they did really well against a good Louisville team at the beginning of the year, and a lot of people kind of get on that loss for JMU, so they should have done better against the Louisville team. But I think that team was really good earlier in the year before they had all those injuries.
Yes.
The trenches is where it's been JMU's strength has been. And if they can move the ball at least a little bit and maybe get a little bit of pressure on the defensive side of the ball without blitzing too much, if they're going to get to Dante Moore at all, they're going to have to blitz a lot. But if they can get at least a couple pressures in there with just rushing 4 or 5 guys, that can be a lot for their defense. So I'm looking forward to that group, seeing how they can compete against an elite offensive line for Oregon.
Yeah. Speaking of that offense, looking at how JMU stacks up against Oregon, what do you think is the main thing that unit needs to do right off the bat to make sure that they're able to keep pace with Oregon, who should be getting back to closer to full strength on their own side of the ball on offense?
Yeah, what we didn't see from JMU against Troy in the Sun Belt Championship was the quick game. You really need to be able to move the ball down the field and get the ball out of the hands quickly for Alonzo Barnett, for him not to get too rattled, for him not to take too many hits early, so they can keep moving the ball down the field. Landon Ellis has kind of been their top, X receiver throughout the majority of the season, but he's been dealing with an injury over the past 2 or 3 weeks late in the year, and that kind of hindered their passing offense a little bit. So getting him the ball early, Nick DeGennaro is another name in there as well. If they can get those 2 guys, Jalen Sanchez as well. Maybe the tight ends a lot bit too. We talk a lot about the tight ends blocking Billy Lakota Dupree and Josh Pfeiffer. They need to get the ball in those playmakers' hands early and out of the ball with Alonzo Barnett's hands quickly.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about Alonzo Barnett because obviously there was that 2 quarterback thing that was going on for a while. How much of an impact do you think Barnett's leg injury was to the early season JMU as opposed to how they're playing now?
Yeah, I didn't think the coaching staff wanted to admit it early on. I don't think they wanted to give excuses for Alonzo, and he was healthy. He was cleared, and he'd been practicing for about a month up to that point. But it's still a lot of time completely out of spring ball and about half of summer ball completely gone, for Alonzo Barnett with a lot of different receivers. And that really hindered not just his health-wise and his comfortability getting hit and whatnot, but also just knowing the playbook and getting comfortable with a different group of receivers. That really hindered the passing offense. And when they went up against a defensive line like Louisville's, like I said, the quick game wasn't working that game. And they tried to get the ball, just drop back farther and get the ball deeper downfield, and he was taking too many hits. And ultimately they weren't in sync enough. And that led to more sacks and them going backwards.
That's interesting. So they do have a new head coach. So there's like a weird scenario, right, where we're seeing a lot of college football coaches get hired while they're still coaching the team. I'm a big fan of Bob Chesney, but how is he balancing that? I mean, from your opinion, I'm sure you're going to the pressers and stuff. Like, what is how much of an impact do you think that'll have on the JMU roster, if any?
For this game or for the future in terms of just the roster construction?
I would say both. Yeah, I would go short term and then long term.
Yeah, well, he definitely gets to stick around a little bit longer, and maybe he, I haven't really thrown this out there in any of my stories not before because it's an interesting question. Maybe there is a chance that he may grabs a couple more guys from JMU over to UCLA because he'll get to see a couple more weeks of them in practice and ultimately against another Big Ten team. And maybe there'll be a couple more names that will impress him and give him the due diligence maybe to offer them some money to go over there to UCLA, because I was kind of under the impression just in terms of transfer wise, if you guys wanted to get in that Chesney was not going to take nearly as much as Signetti did a couple years ago. Remember, Signetti took about 13 quality players from JMU over to Indiana, and they all had instant success. And that really depleted Chesney's ability to come in and have instant success. And that kind of was the main reason why they led to that 9-4 season last year. I haven't been under the impression that Chesney is going to do that. I think is going to be a similar JMU roster next year, but maybe that's a good point. It could change, the roster going into next year, that Chesney may be able to give a couple more guys the spot over at UCLA.
And kind of taking a more wide view lens of that, I feel like a lot of talking heads recently have kind of been trying to whether it be a James Madison or a Tulane, or kind of just any non-P4 teams, kind of just disparaging them and kind of just taking, the normal pot shots of like the SEC talking heads that they usually do on these shows. We probably all know who they are. I kind of just want to get your perspective on, because I know where I fall and I know where Thomas falls, and I think we're both aligned on that. Kind of just give your perspective on why you think, or of your opinion of the talking heads kind of just trying to disparage the group of five and saying that they don't belong.
Yeah, I would say look around and look at a lot of the players you guys are actually talking about in those power conferences. They came from those schools. You've seen a lot of these best players in the country in the past couple of years, since the transfer portal. We talked a lot about when it was coming, how the transfer portal might ruin the G5 a little bit, but it's also just allowed for a lot of these players that have come up, through those programs to excel and really been the faces, outside of the few, maybe the Heisman finalists aren't always G5 transfers, but a lot of the best players in the country, a lot of these All-Americans are coming from G5 schools. Ahmad Hardy is one of them who came from ULM, right? He was there. He was like ULM's entire team as a true freshman and went to Missouri as one of the best running backs in the SEC. So a lot of these players are coming from these programs, and a lot of the content that they're talking about, and a lot of the content they're doing has to revolve on players that, originally wouldn't have be getting that national attention because you guys didn't recruit him in the first place.
Yeah, and adding to that as well, I wanted to ask you about the college football calendar, because as someone that's covered a lot of USF this year, this is something that program's had to go through. They obviously didn't make the American Conference Championship. Their head coach leaves the Sunday before signing day, and it turns into a whirlwind of trying to retain players and trying to make sure everything's set for signing day. And you have guys flipping with the new coach and guys going elsewhere, but then you're still retaining guys. Kind of just talk about, especially from your perspective, with a coach that obviously JMU is in a different situation than a lot of these teams, but kind of just talk in the sense of what you think the calendar is doing to the sport right now and how you would potentially fix it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the tougher ones to get at. I've just been trying to figure out how to kind of fix the budgeting and kind of the different gaps that go along with that in the CBA. I wonder if the CBA can get to the coaches' contracts at all. I know a lot of JMU fans are upset about, since Signetti left and kind of what happened to that season after they lost to Air Force in that bowl game after he left. A lot of JMU fans, and I know a lot of Group of 5 fans in general, want to incorporate, those type of deals and works into deals. The coaches don't have to leave or don't get the opportunity to leave, before a bowl game or before a college football playoff game. Or you see now, maybe in the Power 4 conferences as well, with Lane Kiffin happening in the SEC. As obviously a unique example with the interconference type of deal. But right. Yeah, I've asked Chesney about it a few times. He hasn't kind of given me he hasn't completely said his opinion on it, like completely. But just kind of, it's just how it is nowadays, right? And I'm not exactly sure how I would fix it. It's just in terms of the timing of the transfer portal is something that you can definitely move around. We can find a better time to have a winter transfer portal layer down in the season, not necessarily in bowl season or in college football playoff season, in my opinion. But the coach's contract is a little bit more difficult one, because you want to get your roster sort of in place, towards the end of December, sort of towards January as you get into spring practice. So it's not a horrible time, I think, for new coaches coming into these programs that weren't as successful. But, for the guy who covers UCF or guy who covers GMU, we have to deal with these breaks. All these other fan bases are talking about who are they going to get in for the new free agency, basically, because the transfer portal is basically free agency nowadays. But we're still covering coaching changes while the season is still going on. That's happened to me a couple of years in a row for multiple sports, right? I remember when I first started covering JMU as basketball and football at the same time, and I just covered Signetti leaving Indiana, and then Mark Byington, the basketball coach, went to Vanderbilt from there. So UCF has a similar program as well, with their good athletics all the way across the board. So it's tough, man. It's just kind of the way it works nowadays. I'm just glad that Tulane and John Summerall and Chesney and UCLA and Florida, respectively, were able to work out and get the coach into the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think the way they've handled that has been very respectable, considering some of the stuff like USF, for example. I mean, me and Brandyn and we'll have Mackenzie on to talk about that a little bit more later. But out goes Chesney, not yet, but then in comes Billy Napier.
He did leave and then came back. He came back. Did a press conference and then came back. Yeah. Did another press conference.
What was Billy's message to you guys during his opening statements, and how has if there's been any clarity on how he's going about building his coaching staff and his roster?
Yeah, I mean he's getting the player personnel guys up top in the front office done first, and that's something that JMU hasn't had in Signetti, and even during Chesney's regime, they didn't have that many player personnel front office types. They don't have an official GM, but titles are just titles right now. Chesney's staff wore a lot of hats, and I think as you've seen, the money kind of increased for JMU. JMU is able to hire more of these type of personnel, so he's able to have defensive coordinator Robert Bala, who was a co-defensive coordinator at Florida last year, come in, and then an up-and-coming offensive coordinator from ETSU and Cam Aiken come in on top of the couple people on the front office staff. So I think Billy Napier is really acting fast, and it's good seeing him working very hard and very quickly getting some guys in while Chesney is still here. And as far as recruiting players, I mean, Napier's been very honest and very upfront about how he kind of wants Chesney to approach it, and how, he's invited him to practice multiple times. He's been at practice. They've been at practice together. It's been really funny. But he seems like, Napier is getting that Chesney is reciprocating that same energy in terms of the transparency. And that seems really good for them, right? He told us flat out, he says, if I'm talking to a player and if you're going to UCLA, just tell me. Right. There's a very good understanding of they're not necessarily going to be able to compete. Wayne Knight is that guy that everyone's going to be talking about. He was just named an All-American the other day. I don't have any reporting to officially back up that he's leaving, but that's a guy you got to imagine that Coach Chesney is going to want to bring over to UCLA. Right. So it's going to be tough to hang on him. Sahir West is another guy, defensive end who balled out in the Sun Belt Championship. It's going to be really hard for JMU to hang on to. And Chesney is probably going to want to bring over. But, I know he's working hard to keep a lot of those players. There were a lot of quality starters with eligibility left at Napier's introductory press conference last week, and that's a great sign for JMU fans, in my opinion. I don't have a lot of official who's returning and who's leaving,
right.
But a few of those guys, you got to imagine it's going to be tough for JMU to hang on, regardless if it's UCLA or not.
Yeah, an interesting guy. I mean, did Jelagwe hit the portal? Do you think there's any way that he could find his way, over yonder to Virginia?
Excuse me. Yeah, there's definitely a chance, right? There's definitely a chance. I'm not sure if that's greater than 35 or 30 or 25% of chance, but if he wants to rewrite his career a little bit and maybe take a step down and maybe ball out and compete for a Player of the Year award in the conference and then get back into the Power 5, I don't necessarily think it's a horrible idea. Do I ultimately think he's going to do it? I'm not sure. I probably would not bet on it. But that would certainly be an interesting thing for JMU fans. It would certainly be an interesting thing for the fans that really love Alonzo Barnett. I'm a big Alonzo Barnett guy. I think he's a great winner. I think JMU would be lucky to keep him. But DJ Lagway might be one that would be tough to turn down if he did actually want to go. I ultimately think he probably stays in the Power 4, but things can change, man. Things can change. Matt Sluka coming over about a month, I think in January of this time, maybe a little bit later, I guess last year, while Alonzo Barnett was still recovering, was an interesting quarterback debacle. Who knows what's going to happen for JMU at that position.
Yeah, that's going to be I'm very curious to see. And I know you said that Napier and Chesney have had, how has that been like as somebody, following the team? Like, has that just been like a weird feeling? Is it like a nice transitional phase? I mean, I know you said they're somewhat friendly, but from your perspective, like how has that whole transition been?
I think both of their personalities really helps out and works out. They're both pretty easygoing guys and just very respectful guys. Not every head coach is like that. A lot of them are kind of naturally confrontational. Neither of them are like that. And I think that's helped. I'm not exactly sure where Napier's office space is right now that Chesney's still there, and then that Chesney's dad's is right next to him. So I don't really know how that's working out. But they've been getting along really well, it seems like. And it seems like I said earlier that Chesney is reciprocating a lot of that transparency that Napier kind of asked for. And it's good to see them kind of getting along, and things seem to be working out smoothly. And hey, maybe some things will, if JMU can win this game against Oregon, maybe some more interesting things will pop up. But and maybe they'll extend the time together as Chesney stays. But I think it's been interesting in the past couple of weeks, and it's been I've been kind of appreciative of how they both handle it. It's been very respectful from both them and from the two programs as well.
I love that.
I guess the last thing from like a game perspective against Oregon, at the end of the day, what do you just want to see from JMU? Like from a overall team perspective, obviously odds are against them. They're going into Eugene to play one of the better teams in the country. From a JMU perspective, how do you want to see them play to really head into potentially next year, or hey, maybe even potentially pull off one of the biggest upsets of the season.
Yeah, I'm really confident that JMU is the type of program that will get back to this place, honestly, within the next few years. I'm not really that – I mean, as the rules may change, that may, muddy the waters a little bit. But that's a completely different conversation to have. As long as the rules are similar to how they are now, I'm pretty confident that JMU will get back to this place. Fingers crossed, right, for G5 fans. Something that I really want to see, maybe to kind of cheat a little bit and take an existential kind of answer to this. I want to see a couple of these guys just really ball out and get their names on the radar. There's been a lot of guys recently that have come from the JMU program that I think have been really, really talented players that for whatever reason haven't really got their opportunity to get their names either called in the NFL draft or to be taken seriously as an undrafted free agent. And JMU's been just an elite program at the G5 level and the FCS level for a long time. And for the past couple of years, even actually when they moved up to the FBS, a lot of these guys just haven't been getting that opportunity. And I think a great performance in the CFP for a couple of these guys would really help get their name called. And that would just make me, as a freshly alma mater graduated the other day. But that's something I would love to see, from a couple of these JMU players that, have put a lot for this program and are really, really talented athletes.
Yeah, man. Kari Mans is a guy specifically I remember from last year in the Bowl Bowl. He had an insane tackle on Keyshawn Johnson, chasing a wide receiver who has 4.4 speed, and there's nothing. One of my
favorite players have covered. He's just unreal. Unreal burst off the line. He could drop back and cover if he wanted to for like 5 or 10 snaps, and he was just an elite speed rusher. I didn't understand why. I mean, I think he had a mini camp with the Giants, I believe. Yes. And ultimately, that guy, that's so tough to break that. But so many great players. Jalen Green from a couple years ago is another one who had a horrible or awfully timed injury. And he's a special type of player that was on pace to break a Sun Belt record and maybe even an FBS record as for sacks in the season. But so many JMU guys, have come to this program that are definitely deserving of maybe an additional look for some of these scouts.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, it's the big stage. I truly hope, as just a fan of football and G5 football especially, I just hope those guys start getting the real exposure that they need and just the respect that they deserve, because it's kind of ridiculous the way that football is being talked about. But Hayden, I do appreciate you coming on. Before we get you out of here, though, can you just let everybody know what you got going on, where they can find your social media and your written content?
Yeah, you can kind of find my JMU content on my newsletter on steroids, if you will, at Bridgeforth Breakdown Substack. You can kind of find all that content on there on Hayden Hundley _ on X. I really appreciate your time, guys. This is awesome. Good to see you guys again.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Have a great one.
That is Hayden Hundley. You can find him at Hayden Hundley, HaydenHundley _ on X/Twitter. He's a great follow. I love his Substack as well. I'm subscribed to it. He's a really cool guy, and I do appreciate him taking the time out. Make sure you guys are giving him a quick follow. And we do have our next guest in the green room right now. She covers the USF South Florida Bulls as a part of our football beat. You guys know her. She's a regular on the show. It is Mackenzie Neglia. Mackenzie, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic. So we kind of had a discussion earlier in the show about the timing of college football with the coaches being able to leave before the end of the season, and just the way the scheduling is. Obviously, you guys know that firsthand with Coach Golish. Mackenzie, you're in the building. You go to the school. I mean, what has that been like? I mean, how was that entire situation for you? What was the vibe with the players? Because it was almost like Alex Golish kept saying, "I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to go. I'm too busy to even check my phone and talk to people," which we all knew was kind of ridiculous. And then he ends up taking off. So I mean, just from your perspective and what you've been able to see and who you've been able to talk to, how was that situation?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of the coaches being poached in the middle of everything kind of thing. But I mean, I think everyone kind of saw it coming to some extent. We knew he was kind of going to go somewhere. especially towards the end of the season. And I got that vibe from the players too, especially in the last game. You kind of just felt like he was saying goodbye in a sense. And if he knew like where, and maybe at that point he didn't know where he was going, but he knew it would be his last game. But overall, I mean, it's a huge adjustment for sure. You know, they took a lot of the coaches went to Auburn with Golish, all the support staff went with them as well. So there's a lot of new people coming in, but for the most part, you know, the players have been really focused on just leaning on each other in that sense.
Yeah. Before I get to you, I did have another question for you, Mackenzie. Like, how do you think that? I mean, obviously Byron Brown's not going to be in the Cure Bowl. I mean, that's common news by now. How do you think the players are going to go about? I mean, it's just a weird thing, right? Because you have, you know, an interim head coach who's coaching the game, but they have a new head coach already in Brian Hartline, and you know, as you said, they took a lot of the support staff, so it's like kind of working with spare parts, I guess. And has that affected, like, from what you've been able to see, like, has that affected the players or anything at all, in your opinion?
I think a little bit. I think like it's, for me, the way I thought about it was kind of like they walked in the next day. You know, they got called into a team meeting in the morning. Golish was leaving, and kind of everybody just left at that point. And there was not. It was kind of like they went on to practice, and there wasn't really like anybody there, even though they had the game and everything the day before. So it kind of, I think, it was disheartening in some way. And kind of just trying to maneuver that. I don't. It was a very weird. It happened all so fast, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I've seen it too. I mean, and now, I mean, thankfully, as CEO Mr. Higgins pointed out, that the team did upgrade though, leveled up. They did get Brian Hartline. I mean, I guess I'm throwing shots at Alex Golish, but I mean, you guys know I'm not a huge fan. Well, I guess that's public knowledge now. Not a huge fan of Alex Golish. This guy said it. Not these two. Not these two. It's just this guy.
You're pointing in the wrong direction.
I'm trying very hard.
It's fine.
But in comes Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline is a great coach. Brandyn, I know you're a massive fan of Brian Hartline. I mean, obviously a lot of people know who he is, but what does he bring to the table specifically for USF, and how do you expect him to utilize guys who are at this moment likely to still be on the team next year?
You know, I think you're looking at it, if you're looking at it right now, right? You're kind of seeing how he's building his staff. You know, bringing in the very, very younger side, but highly successful defensive coordinator in Josh Aldridge from East Carolina. Obviously, some of the player personnel hires that he's made. And then earlier tonight, Tim Beck from Coast Carolina. Seems like he's pairing himself with a more veteran, knowledgeable offensive mind. We still don't know if he's going to call plays. We don't know what the scheme is specifically going to look like. You're going to find out all that stuff as we head toward the spring and all of that fun stuff. But, you know, I think that at the end of the day, when you look at Brian Hartline at USF, he's going to be a coach that emphasizes those relationships with the players and emphasizes building out really just the important interpersonal workings of college football. Obviously, the money is going to be there. We all know that. We know that USF is putting the financial backing behind him. So that's not the worry. He's not going to be one of these coaches that has to pine for the NIL money and has to pine for, hey, we need our program funded. That's not a problem for USF right now. So now he gets to use his skill set to the best visibility. He is someone that, I mean, look at the recruitment of Chris Henry Jr., for an example, right? That's someone that didn't initially sign with Ohio State in large part because Brian Hartline took the USF job, right? This is a guy that has the NFL and college experience. He understands what it takes to get to the next level, but also understands how to recruit and how to appeal to high school kids and knows how to build a situation that kids are going to want to come into and play. Now, we've seen that from him as a wide receivers coach. as a co-offensive coordinator. We need to see it from him as a head coach. And I think that's going to be the very interesting thing. How does he attack the portal? What does he prioritize? Who does he prioritize keeping on this current USF team? A lot of those questions we don't know yet. And I think you might have some insight into what it's going to be and the effort that's going to be put into that, because USF opted to play in such an early bowl game. They're playing in like one of the first 5 bowl games of bowl season. They were a type of team that could have been potentially competing for a New Year's Six, or could have been in a much bigger bowl game. They wanted to be done earlier, and I think that kind of tells you what Hartline and his staff are going to want to do with this roster right off the bat.
Yeah, that's a good segue. I wanted to ask you, Mackenzie, because obviously the transfer portal is going to be open soon, and new coach, a lot of moving parts. Byron Brown could potentially be one of them. Who knows? Has there been any thoughts in your mind about him potentially leaving the team, or maybe somebody else we may not be sure about?
Definitely Byram. I mean, the interesting thing with him is like, I think that, you know, even with him kind of serving as a coach in the Cure Bowl, I think that the last game he played, he kind of wanted that to be his last game with USF. And, you know, it's such like he's so loved by the students and by the fans that, you know, if he does leave, it's going to be, you know, he's going to be greatly missed for sure. But at the same time, you know, I think he definitely deserves to move on to bigger and better.
Yeah, man, it's such a tough situation, because I'm pretty sure his dad, reports that I've seen, like him and his dad were crying and stuff after the last game. So he kind of leads one to believe that's probably his last game at USF. Whether or not he goes to the NFL or follows Golish or goes to a different P4 school, I mean, who knows? But Brandon, that's actually, I wanted to ask you, because, you know, piggybacking off the transfer portal talk, do you think that we find a transfer portal quarterback come into USF? Do you think it's a guy on the roster? What do you think could be the best bet in a Brian Hartline offense?
That's a tough question.
Yeah,
it's going to be
loaded it up for
you.
you.
That's a little bit on the tougher side of things. I think if you look at the roster right now, right, they're going to have to add something, because the quarterback that they had in their 2026 recruiting class, he went with Golish to Auburn. That being Reese Brush. So they have to add at least a guy or two right off the bat to just fill out the room. Because if you lose Byram, you don't have Brush coming in, and you lose Gaston-Moore to graduation, that's already a room that is much lighter, right? You have Sam Fennon in that room, who was an international prospect. You have Lachlan Hewlett, who played really, really well, as Mackenzie can also attest to, in the spring game, and also had absolute dime to Keyshawn Singleton, fake punt touchdown in the Boise State game. I think it is very conceivable that Hartline is able to convince a pretty solid, pretty good quarterback to come to USF. Once again, it ties into the different conversations and points we've had regarding where USF is at. They have the money to go into the portal and get a pretty solid addition. They have the coach in Hartline, who I'm sure can sell a pretty good vision to a quarterback. I just don't know who that's going to be at, because I feel like every single day I'm looking at 5 more quarterbacks entering the portal. There's just so many names right now, and so much is still happening, that it's borderline impossible to sift through all the chaos of what is going to actually be the landscape. Like, I want to put it like this. The portal doesn't officially open, and you don't have to officially enter until January 2nd. It is December 16th. We are, in football terms, we are light years away from knowing who are the players that are going to be in the transfer portal. So, yes, USF's going to have to make additions, most likely. There's always a possibility Byron Brown stays. the likelihood of that happening probably isn't too high, but hey, I've seen crazier things happen. You have two guys in Lachlan Hewlett and Sam Fenton that I think could be productive if put into the right spot. And outside of that, you probably have to make some additions. So I'm fascinated to see where they go from here. I'm fascinated to see what type of quarterback specifically they try to add in the portal, and if that's as a starter or depth.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see what this offense is going to look like, because it was very good under Golish. It could potentially be even better under Brian Hartline. I'm very fascinated to see it. And obviously, it goes to the Cure Bowl. You said, as Brandon alluded to, that they probably want to get the heck out of there this year. So I'm going to keep this question kind of brief, I guess. Mackenzie, what do you want to see in the game? I mean, it's both starting quarterbacks aren't going to be playing in the game, so we have one of these very fun situations where it's going to be, I don't want to say probably a lot of backups. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. But what are you specifically looking for, if anything, if not just for like a good time, a good game? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a good game for sure. I think it's going to be interesting. They both don't have their starting quarterbacks. You're going to have both your backups in, kind of, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, both of these, I want to see how they stack up together, too. I mean, both of these teams have the same overall record, the same record in conference play.
Right.
So, also, like you said, who plays in this game, because there's a lot of injuries, a lot of guys who got banged up, who we haven't heard from, like Chaz Nimrod. Maybe he comes back this week. He was questionable the last few games. And the secondary too. USF's defense is pretty injured also. So kind of seeing really just who plays this game and how they do. But I think just going out on a high note here.
Yeah, I really hope so. Brandon, I'm going to ask you the same question, my friend.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I'm fascinated to see who plays. Once again, the seniors are going to play, but are there underclassmen that are opting out that we simply haven't heard about yet? Are there guys that are entering the portal or trying to get more out? There's so many different things that can happen with these bowl games that trying to wrap it into one coherent thought is not going to happen. And that's bad podcasting. That's bad live broadcasting, right? I think the biggest, in all seriousness, though, I think the biggest question for me is, what the heck does this offense look like? The entire offensive coaching staff is basically in Auburn right now.
Yeah.
What does this offense look like? Do they run a bare bones scheme? Are there things that Old Dominion would have never expected from the 2025 version of the USF Bowls? Like, what is this offense going to look like? Like, I am not exaggerating. At least 85% of USF's offensive staff from this season is at Auburn. And he took some of the defensive staff too. So
yeah,
I like, you guys want to talk about the roster and who's going to play? Yes, that is a very big factor of this. I am so intrigued to see what the play calling and the units themselves look like from a schematic standpoint tomorrow, because Lord knows if I have any clue.
That's kind of the thing. Like, I was like, all right, Cure Bowl. And then, all right, Byron Brown's not playing. Okay, Colton Joseph's not playing. And I'm just like, okay, well, who's going to be there? And then half the staff's going for USF. Not ideal.
At least Old Dominion has their coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
There's still continuity there. They still have the coaching staff that allowed them to be highly successful this year. Yeah. That is not the case for this game for USF.
No, it's not. So it's going to be interesting. It's to a point where you can't even give a real prediction, because
not
in
the slightest.
You're not going to have any idea.
You are not flipping a coin for this game. That would be too arbitrary. You are throwing a dart at a dartboard, and wherever it lands, I would legitimately say, yeah, you know what, that's a good thought.
It really is. So it's very Man, it's such a weird. We're in such a weird spot for college football right now. I could go on a massive diatribe about how I hate
did
the way
already.
things are. Yes. Well, that was
Twice.
short. That
Twice.
was short. That was
Twice.
short though. Only 40 minutes. We've done longer than that on the telephone. So it's I mean, it's just so bizarre. And I mean, honestly, and it's weird for everyone. And actually that's a good segue for actually what I wanted to ask you, Mackenzie. I wanted to ask you this I don't know, remember, I might have already asked you this actually. But your first year covering college football, like as a reporter, what has it been like for you? Like, what's been your favorite moment following the team? What's something that you didn't think was going to happen while you were doing this? I mean, just let people who don't know get an inside look of somebody doing it for the first time.
Oh, it's been so cool and so special to be a part of. I think, every day is something new. You never know what to expect. But it's been so much fun, and I mean this season, especially for USF, it was just so much going on. They had such a special year too. So
yeah,
I mean I look forward to it every day, getting to go and spend time there and getting to do all of this.
Yeah, and I do appreciate all the work that you do. You've done a fantastic job. I couldn't say enough great things about you. But Mackenzie, before I let you get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you at on your social media, what you're up to, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, all of my USF coverage is on my X or Twitter. It's just my first and last name, so at Mackenzie Neglia. And I mean, season's wrapping up soon or tomorrow, and we'll be back with the spring coverage soon. We'll probably be talking about the spring game in a few weeks.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I truly appreciate you coming on the show as always, and thank you so much for taking the time out to come out here.
Of course, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Have a great one.
As Mackenzie Neglia of the League Winners, you can find her at her first name, last name, Mackenzie, Neglia, Neglia, all bunched together. That is on Twitter. Great follow, very great person. I do appreciate her taking the time out. And by the way, folks, I lied at the beginning of the show because I do have an intermission break, and it is going to be, I'm just full of surprises today, aren't I?
Oh yeah, full of them.
Yeah, everyone's gonna love this one. He's a MacArthur-ized. I'm gonna see if you can guess. I'm gonna see if you can guess who this is just by where he's from and what position he plays. And I'll give you the commit too, because he did commit eventually. He goes to MacArthur High School. He's a 3-star safety. And he committed to FIU. Brandon, do you know who it is?
You know what? Let's let the audience find out.
That's a great segue. This is Jakari Johnson, my friends.
What's up, everyone? Brandyn Pokrass of the League Winners here once again for another interview. This time, I'm here with defensive back Jakari Johnson. Jakari, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
So my first question to you, you just committed to FIU. I want to ask you, what made the school stand out to you, and what made you ultimately decide to commit to them right now?
So the most important thing is me to if it's basically like love who love you. If they're showing you love, they really want me, and it's a good school. It's not a bad program. It's a great school. Great athletes come from the school, and so they really liked me. I love the school. I took a visit to the school, and I verbally committed. So, because I think it's perfect for me. It fit me. So I verbally committed to the school.
Now, shifting to your play on the field, you can do a little bit of everything. I want to focus on your run defense. You have at least 25 tackles over the past 2 seasons. What goes into your mentality as a downhill run defender that can move around the defensive formation? And also, how does that approach change as you face different offenses in high school?
So my coach said he wanted me in a box. So I said I could do it. I could do anything on the field. So he wanted me to I could play the box. He wanted me to cover. I could do anything on the field. I'm versatile. So it don't really matter to me. I can come down physical. I like to hit. So I can go down in the box and cover and do anything. I can do anything on the field. I put my mind to.
You've also showed some range as a coverage player. So I want to ask you, what's your favorite coverage to play in? And then building on top of that, how do you like to approach the different coverages you are asked to play in your defense?
My favorite coverage got to be man to man. I like man to man. So and probably approaching probably like cover 3 playing zone because like at Plantation we really play like man. He went as a man, so going to MacArthur approaching like I'm running new defenses, so we really want like match. It's like match defense and coverage like that. So something like that.
Are you excited about that new defensive scheme that really show off a different side of your game?
Yes, I'm very excited.
And that goes into my next question for you. Over the summer, what have you been focused on the most improving at your game, whether it's a specific, coverage thing, whether it's just your overall game? What have you been focused on the most?
Mostly I've been focused on like off. I've been first focused on off techniques. So like when I'm playing off, I don't always have to press somebody. So I'm working on off technique, see how they like try and do things out. Like, because you always can't press, so you gotta try to do things out. So I'm doing off techniques. Another thing I'm working on is like trying to get faster so that I can really run on film. So I've been working on that, and I've been working on really just getting stronger faster. I'm trying to be the greatest person I can be this season.
So my next question for you, this is something I ask everyone that I interview. If you could have one player, past or present, that you could have as a mentor or coach, who would it be and why? And it can be at your position, it can be just a player in general, but who would that person be and why?
I gotta say probably Duran James. I look up to Duran James a lot, so it's probably got to be Duran James because he can cover, he can hit, he can go on blitzes, he can do it all. He talk trash, I talk trash, so it's probably somebody I look up to or something like that.
Yeah, and speaking to that film, the way you move around the formation, the way you're flying downhill, and also have those coverage plays. That's someone at least from what I've been able to watch, that you really try to take after. You try to model that. Move safety, but someone that can really do everything on the field, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And then my last question for you, heading into your senior year, what do you want to showcase this season? And then the second part to that question, what goals or milestones do you have that you personally want to achieve this season?
I really want to have the most picks. I want to lead Miami, Broward. I want to lead all that in picks. I want to show that I can really get the ball, get my hands on the rock. I really want to show that I'm one of the best DBs down. Cause I think I'm really slept on. So I want to really show that I'm one of the ones. So that's really the thing I've been really trying to achieve and work on. And I've been grinding for it right now. I'm really trying to show that I'm one of the best DBs that's down here.
Love that answer. So that brings us to the end of it. Before we get out of here, is there anything that you want to share? Is there any, social media that you want to give everyone so they can follow you?
On Instagram, it's 794.kayway. And on Twitter, it's Jakari Johnson _ And that's probably it. And I got another thing to say. Come watch us at MacArthur this year, and we really go turn MacArthur up.
Well, you heard him. You heard Jakari. Come check him out this year. Come check out the newest commit to the FIU Panthers. And thank you guys for joining us once again for another great interview. We will be back very soon. Thank you guys for tuning in as always, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah. Oh, wait, it flip-flopped. Oh, that's interesting. I'll take it. Why not? We'll go with it. Nobody expected that to happen, just like nobody expected this reverse plain Uno. Yeah, I said it.
Maybe when you point to things now, it'll actually be there in the correct order.
Is this the right way now?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great. You know what? We have another surprise, and he's in the waiting room right now. I'm going to talk some Florida Atlantic football with our good friend, Robbie Zastella. Robbie, how you doing, my friend?
Good, guys. How's it going?
Actually, I should say Blake Horvath. How you doing, Blake?
I have never heard that comparison before. I had to look at a picture. I kind of see it. I don't know. There's worse comparisons out there for sure.
Hey, both very handsome gentlemen, but that's not why I have you on the show, my friend, as you know. Talking some Florida Atlantic football. I mean, it seems kind of like, I don't want to say exodus, but there's a lot of movement right now in the transfer portal. Seeing a lot of guys leave. Zion Peretz, I think the latest one to go, if I'm not mistaken. And they lost Calixte, a receiver that I was high on, but there's a lot of movement going out the door for FAU. Is that, as somebody who covers the team, as somebody who lives in the area, is that something you're potentially nervous about, considering how the seasons went? Do you think Coach Zach Kitley is going to dip into the portal more because of that, or him just telling guys, hey, you're not going to have a job here, kind of a thing? What are your thoughts on FAU and their in and outs with the transfer portal? I'm a mess today.
I honestly, you mentioned Zion. He was probably due to go up a level. CJ Hurd last year. When DBs have success here, it seems like they they have a chance to go to the next level. And he took that. Jay Sean Platt, another guy. I mean, he's been here when I feel like he was here when I was a freshman in college, and I'm 2 years removed now. So, respect to him. He grinded it out, redshirted, still stayed, and capitalized. That's another guy who, in a perfect world, sure, he'd stay here and they keep him. But, there's opportunities for him out there that monetarily that FAU can't provide. And then so, that's another guy where I feel like, it's not really the sky is falling. And then Daughtry Richardson is the other starter. And he was, had an up and down year for sure at the tackle position. So I'm sure, they're not too upset about, getting some new pieces in there at offensive line and trying new things in that front. So, a lot of the young guys too that have left, it's all opportunity based, right? I look at a guy like Jabari Smith. He had a bigger role in the Tom Herman offense, lesser role here, made plays when he was on the field, but, didn't have a ton of time to really flash in general. So that's a guy who needs to go and find a bigger role. Same thing with like on the defensive side of the ball. Lawrence Johnson, for example, he flashed in small sample size, but there wasn't, a spot for him to really play. And so, could he have potentially earned a spot next year? Maybe, but that's what the transfer portal's for, right? For guys to go and see what else is out there. I'm big into give it 2 years and see what happens from there. But, long story short, I'm not really too concerned with the moves yet. I'm happy with some of the retention. You look at Caden Veltkamp coming back. I think that's big. On the offensive line, if they can keep Fiacable at center, he was one of the higher pieces that performed well on the offensive line. So I think that'd be big. And obviously the big waiting game right now is Easton Messer and Assad Wasim. Caden's making social media pleas to them to come back. So, you get those 3 guys back at 2 guys back at receiver. That's something for sure. You got Brandyn Hoke to step up. And I'm sure they're going to go in the portal as well. So I'm not too concerned yet. Hopefully they can retain some of those guys that I just mentioned. And on the defensive side of the ball, Josh Roberts, a big name I'm keeping an eye on right now as well. That'd be a big guy to retain. But not too concerned yet, but keeping an eye on it for sure.
Yeah. We've been talking about this all show now with some of our other guests of, the P4 kind of robbing the G5, I guess we'll call it, and just the timing of the transfer portal and this. Not an FAU's case this year because, obviously they didn't make a bowl game, but just the timing of everything in general. Like, what are your thoughts on how that structure is laid out from the playoffs occurring while people can get in the transfer portal and all this stuff? Like, what are your takes on it? And do you think it should change? And if so, how?
I feel like everything should change, but, my thoughts aren't going to matter. But, I feel like a coach saying that, but, I feel like it's just kind of weird right now because guys are in the transfer portal, right? But they can't technically commit anywhere.
Right.
They, there's social media graphics coming out, commit this, that, and the third. And, that might be true. But nothing's official yet. And, that creates a problem, right? These coaches are working to get these guys. nothing's official until I forget when it is. I think I forget when it opens, but whenever that is. But so-and-so coach has a deal with this guy, but it's not official. And then, another coach comes in and gets him, this dead period right now creates a lot of chance for potential problems. And I think, you can't really say guys can't enter the transfer portal because, they can do whatever they want. Like they can do whatever they want behind the scenes. Like what's going to stop them? But, I feel like at this point, they just need to open up the transfer portal as soon as team season ends. Like they can go wherever they want to go. Obviously not eligible until next year, but what's the point of making a guy wait until the end of the national championship game to commit when, they're committing to a team that's playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl right now? Like that type of, like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So, and nothing's ideal with this whole thing. But I feel like everyone's kind of adapting, and if not, you're slowly seeing them get eradicated from college football. Right? All the old school coaches are starting to go. I look at Kyle Whittingham from Utah. I feel like that's like a last of a dying breed. So, got to adapt, got to do what you can do. I feel like that's why, FAU's really, I feel like, they had a JUCO heavy approach. I feel like they took a lot of guys that they feel like are going to be impact players next year. So we'll see. But no, I think nothing's perfect with this clock and anything that goes into it for sure.
Yeah, B, I wanted to ask you this too, because we are seeing a lot of teams start to go from like dipping into the JUCO and the D2 level. And I mean, how prevalent do you think that becomes where, I mean, we start seeing like a majority of a G5 program be primarily from like a JUCO?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's this. I don't think it's going to turn into like a whole roster thing, right? I don't think it's going to turn into, hey, look at the American Conference. You have 3 teams that are filled with like JUCO and Division II. Like I don't think that's going to happen in a lot of these conferences. What I think it's more so going to be is, and Robin, once I finish, I want you to hear your thought on this too. I think it's going to be more of a backfilling depth type thing, right? Because you look at a team like FAU, they're losing a lot of depth. It's not like they're losing like all of their starters that they had this year. It's not like they're being completely rated for spare parts by, higher conference teams looking for their starters. It's more of like a Cam Goggins, a Lawrence Johnson, a Mike Wright, Mike Alcalix, like guys that have potential, younger guys, but didn't exactly contribute at a high level or have a chance to contribute at a high level. And I think what you may be seeing a school like FAU do, and maybe others down the line, is, hey, is it worth it to keep recruiting out of the portal at the FBS level when guys are just going to leap? Or do we give guys that could potentially get on the field right away and really be maybe a higher floor depth instead of the higher ceiling depth that really backfills our roster in that way?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, right? Like, look at FAU's class, for example. They took a wide receiver from it's a small junior college in Oklahoma. His name's Antwan Woody. He's 5'9", played at a very small high school in Alabama, played at JUCO and NAIA, 2 different ones. But he flashed this last year at the JUCO in Oklahoma, showed speed, didn't have a ton of receiving yards. I think he had about 400, but he was a kick returner as well. And right, like that's not a guy they're going to, if East Demester were to leave, that's not a guy they're throwing out there at slot. If they are, I'm surprised. But that's a guy to me, that you look at, you see him flashing, and you want to get him before he goes and has a 1,500-yard season at Oklahoma and A&M Northwest, whatever it's called. And then he's getting looks at from, lower level P4s and other G5s. Go and get a guy like that now, develop him, stash him on your roster, right? You take him from a junior college in Oklahoma. He might not be your starter, but odds are you develop him and give him a shot. He probably won't transfer. At least that's what you hope. And then next year after that, you develop him. And I feel like there's a lot of guys like that, right? I feel if Antwan sees this, sorry to use you as an example there, but I feel like there's a lot of guys that are going to be in that way, right? They had a decent year at junior college, and instead of doing that year 2 that you'd normally potentially do at a junior college if you weren't. You get a look from, an FAU, a Western Kentucky, other schools in the American too, Tulsa, there's a couple of schools that do well with junior colleges, and go stash there for a year. I don't know necessarily it'll be an entire roster. FAU did a good job of identifying some positions in need and going out and get some guys from that level last year. They got a linebacker, Kamari Johnson, a couple DBs as well. And so, they got some higher level guys. I feel like, the big guys that you'll see be able to come and play right away are experienced veterans from like the D2 level. I feel like it is still a big jump. I'm a big believer in there's talent at any level, but you still need to adjust, right? As much I'm still a believer in Kamari Johnson for FAU as a talented linebacker, but there were times last year you could see when he was out there that, he was still adjusting to the speed of D1 football. So you got to give guys time when you bring them up from that level. But I agree with Brandon. It's going to be a depth thing, especially because you got to fund these roster spots. That with all these teams that are signing into the deal. I forgot what the exact amount is, but everyone has to fill the whole roster out. So you got to find a way to fill that. And I think the best way to do that is from the junior college and D2 levels.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask you, I mean, the NIL is kind of more or less, it's like a free agency at this point, right? It's like who has the most money in terms of the or who has the most money that can chill out, I guess. In terms of the American, how do you see, because Boca is a very rich environment, right? Very, very rich place. They have a lot of money in Boca. Not all of it necessarily gets funneled to the football team. A lot of that has to do with how the program has been for the past couple of years, but you never know what could happen, right? But how do you, in a changing world of college football, what I guess I'm trying to ask is how competitive do you see Florida Atlantic being in terms of attracting higher end guys, I guess, as opposed to other teams within the conference?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I look at it from a basketball sense. From a basketball sense, they've done a pretty good job of building out a competitive roster. From a football sense, I feel like there needs to, it's tough because everything's hush hush. But I believe there's a law coming out, or they already agreed to have a certain amount of findings, or you have to give the amount of NIL. It's a public information soon, I think. That would be big because then it would give us a kind of a hint of how much money FAU is really going, but it's tough to tell, right? Like you look at the roster, Caden's obviously getting money. Easton's obviously getting money. Assad's probably getting money, but after that, it's probably smaller deals, right? I mean, I don't know, a lot of you are paying these guys, but exactly how much. So, it's tough with football because I feel like Caden and Easton, if they were both to stay, they're definitely taking probably sweetheart deals, in my opinion, to go play for Zach Kitley. And I'm not saying they're getting peanuts, but at the end of the day, they're probably taking less money than they would. Caden, that's already a done deal. He definitely could have gone to a P4, despite what people are saying, trolls in the comments on social media. He could have gone and backed up at Texas Tech. If you don't believe that, I don't know what to tell you. He didn't. He stayed, and I think that's a big thing is having Kitley, is he's going to have those relationships. But in terms of attracting top talent, I don't know. We'll see how they do in the transfer portal this year in football. In basketball, they do a good job. The team's gotten raided to pieces the past 2 years, and for last year, new coach brings in a good roster, and half that roster now is all playing at Power 4 teams. Brought in a new roster this year, off to a decent start. So, I'm assuming if the money is good in basketball, I'm sure it's fine in football as well, but it probably could always be better. New president at the school. Seems like he's a big fan of athletics from what we've seen so far. Very active, goes to all the games, on social media active. But, you see a lot of these other schools posting X $20 million on anonymous donation, $6.5 million anonymous. I haven't seen that for FAU athletics. I've seen that for other areas of the school, in the academic side. They made political donations. They've done facility improvements for on the athletic side. They've done facility improvements. But I feel like there hasn't been that big NIL donor yet, and so could be better. We'll see how they do in the transfer portal. If they're able to retain Easton and Assad along with Caden, that's how, and Josh Roberts on the defensive side of the ball, that tells me they're doing all right. We'll see when I think it comes out in Q1 of next year that NIL numbers are public. I have to look at that, but if true, that's big because then we can see where, at least for the public schools, obviously private can do what they want, but it'll be big. We'll see where everyone's at.
Brandyn, what are your thoughts on that, B?
Yeah, I think it's the way I always look at it is it's a process, right? A lot of the schools that you look at that aren't necessarily at the level of others, it's because their programs are just inherently younger. Like I think not the funniest, but I think the biggest delineation between some of your, P4 schools and the group of five schools started football like 25 years after like some of these bigger programs have hit their stride, right? Like it's a process of building. I think the biggest thing I want to see from an FAU perspective is how are they going forward? How are they continuing to lay the groundwork to be a successful program?
Right.
Nobody's expecting the switch to go on overnight and for FAU to immediately just have the money funnel flowing. You have to continue to lay that infrastructure and lay that groundwork. It looked like they were doing more of that this season, right? But similar to what Robbie said, can you retain your guys? Can you retain the best players on your roster? And then going forward, can you slowly but surely start making sure that maybe if the money funnel isn't completely on, you're still able to compete at a high level. You still have enough funding to that program to really ensure that they're not getting left behind, that they're not ending up in a position like, let's throw out a team, right? Charlotte was in a position before this offseason. Charlotte has gotten more funding where they just simply were not in a position to compete. The groundwork was simply not there. And you saw what that bore out. You saw what that meant for that program on the field this season, not just off the field, on the field. You're starting to see that progression finally happen for Charlotte. You need to see that for every school. I wish it didn't have to be the case. I wish it didn't have to be more and more and more investment. That's unfortunately the reality that we are in with college athletics, let alone college football right now, right? If you're not investing in it, you're going to get left behind. You need to see FAU continue to make that investment. Like Robbie said, I'm going to be fascinated to see when these numbers become public. I really want to see where FAU is starting from. But until then, you need to just see them be able to retain their guys, maybe bring in a few guys every offseason and really start to hammer home what this foundation is going to be going forward.
Yeah. We'll actually be able to get it'll be the 2025 annual financial reports. Revenue sharing, you'll get it should be that individual payments to student athletes for the revenue sharing per individual student athlete should be public. So we should be able to see what the school is paying each individual player, along with their Alston payments, which is educational benefits. So that'll be interesting.
That'll be very interesting. Before I let you go, Robbie, I wanted to ask you, how realistic is it that both Assad, Wasim, and Easton Messer are retained?
I'd say, anywhere from for both of them, like a 50 to 70% chance, maybe. I'm actually probably leaning closer to Easton staying than Assad, which is, that's interesting because I felt like Easton had probably the better year, but, he's got that connection to Kitley and Caden probably a little more than Assad does. But, it'll be interesting to see, right? Because if Easton announces he's coming back, then does Assad feel left out? And he's like, okay, yeah, I got to come back right now. But the thing is Assad is very slot dominant. Mm-hmm. He plays well in the slot. And I feel like if he goes to a team without Easton Messer, he could have a really big year. And he could have a really big year with Easton Messer, but what can he do when he is the guy? So, we'll see if they can keep both. If they don't keep both, I feel like they do need to go out and get a really, you know, impact player, a guy who's proven at the Division I level, you know, that they can go out and get it. Not a P5 guy who's never played a snap in his life. You know, we saw them take a couple guys like that last year and it didn't work out. You know, they need guys who have played and shown they can do it. And, you know, it's tough. You got to kind of have a guy who can play at an offense that you're moving. You need that play like very quickly. So that'll be what I'm watching. That'll be what I'm watching for sure, is if they can keep both. And if not, who do they bring in? And where do they come from? Like, what's their background? You can't just bring in a guy who was playing at, I don't know, any pro style offense, Maryland with Pep Hamilton, right? Like a backup wide receiver from Maryland would be the worst wide receiver. No offense to the backup wide receivers in Maryland, but for FAU's sense, that'd be the worst wide receiver because Pep Hamilton's pro style offense is nothing like Zach Kitley. The guy may be an X5 star, but if he can't run an offense where he needs to have the entire playbook memorized and be able to go with whatever play on a dime's notice after a snap, you're useless and you're not going to be able to play. So it's going to be, you know, people are like, oh yeah, Zach Kitley can go out and get whatever wide receiver he wants and plug and play. It's not that simple. It's definitely not that simple. So that's why retaining talent is important. And that's why Brandyn Hoke, whose family is on social media already talking about next year, that doesn't need to worry. That's why having him coming back and having him get some playing time in year one was important.
Yeah. I completely agree. Now, Robbie, before we do let you out of here, just let everybody know where they can find you out on your social media, what you have coming up next, and all your good stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me at our La Stella Report. We're doing college basketball right now. Grind of the non-conference schedule is coming to an end. I love it because you know, it's all the schools, right? I just did a story on UMass. All the UMass fans had an absolutely horrendous fall. And their basketball team just upset FSU. It was a great game. They scored like over 100 points. So, you know, that fan base needs it. And I can tell like they're interacting and it's cool to see, you know, from the schools, you know, I don't follow all the schools in football. I'm more into that in basketball, and it's cool to see you know, like a fan base like UMass get hype about their basketball team. So I'll have you know, more college basketball stuff coming out over the next couple months, and I'll have FAU content as well off season wise. So appreciate you guys for having me on as always, and best of luck. Stay warm. I know you guys are going up to Oregon. It's going to be cold, so yeah, stay warm. You guys are northeastern folks, so you should be all right.
Well, I don't know about this guy anymore, but
you're turning into a real deal Floridian, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
we're gonna have to start getting him the tan. We're getting him a tan. Get him the unbutton.
Yeah,
2 buttons on the button up.
Top.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, no.
There you go. I love it, Robbie. Thank you so much for coming on, bro. I appreciate you.
Of course, guys. Take care.
Later, buddy. That is Robbie La Stella. Great friend of the show. Love his content. You can find him at the letter R, La Stella Report, LASTELLA Report. Sounds how it's spelt, how it sounds. Jesus, I can't talk today. So make sure you guys follow him for Florida Atlantic coverage and for college basketball coverage. He does a fantastic job there. Truly appreciate him and everything that he does. Met him in our first year doing college football stuff, and he's been a good friend of the show ever since then. And Brandyn, about to get you out of here too. Let everybody know where they can find you. I mean, Robbie kind of spoiled it there, but he spoiled the big reveal. But you know, let everybody know where they can find you at, what you have going on, and all your fun stuff.
Yeah. So as you said at the top of the show, you can find me on Twitter at BPOC24. You can find me on Instagram at BPOC24. Also on Blue Sky at Brandyn-Pokrass. As Robbie said, we're going to be in Oregon. I am very excited for that. That's going to be a very fun cross-country trip to cover the college football playoff. And yeah, it's going to be electric. I mean, I don't really have any other word to use to describe that besides saying, yeah, it's going to be electric. And also, going to be trying some new social media stuff, maybe, you know, some more video-based content. So stay tuned for that. But Thomas, I will see you in a few short days. And thank you, as always, for having me on.
I appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you later.
Peace.
That is Brandyn Pokrass of the League Winners. Of course, you can find him, as he said, at BPOK24 on Twitter and Instagram. Great guy, great follow. Make sure you guys are following his work on every platform that he mentioned seconds ago. I do have my next guest in the waiting room, another great friend of mine. We just have a great list of great friends on this show, and that's what I really love about, getting into the media side of things for college sports. You can find him at wakeupcalldt.com. He's been a broadcaster for over 20 years. He's a really great friend of mine covering on the Syracuse beat. He does amazing interviews. I really appreciate watching his show, and he's just a fun, down-to-earth guy. But he also is the utmost professional. It is my good friend, Dan Tortora. Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Happy to get the opportunity to do this again. I know it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
You had a birthday. I was on vacation with my dad, but still working on the college. By the way, college football playoff committee, to anybody that thought whatever, you saw what they said, you saw what I had. The committee and I were in lockstep of who we put in, who didn't get in, how they put them in, where they put them in. I mean, I can honestly say the committee and I were almost completely snake eyes. It was almost identical, which, it's a good thing, I guess. It's a lot of work, but it's a good thing. By the way, too, I appreciate all of the hate mail because they got us up to almost 1 million views just on Facebook. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. Hey, if they're not hating, you're not doing something right?
Yeah.
If they're hating, you're doing something.
I guess you hate me and the committee equally because the people in that room thought the same thing that I did. So
I also want to give a shout out to Shane. I'm sure he's not too happy that Notre Dame got left out. And then they decided not to play the bowl game. But what are your thoughts on? Because I do want to talk to you about college football playoffs, some bowl games, and I think this is a good segue because a lot of teams are opting out of bowl games, Notre Dame being one of them. And I know theirs is, they got upset they didn't get in the playoffs, whatever. What are your thoughts about that?
I spent a few days away from Notre Dame content, and now you want to get me in trouble again. So I would say so I was talking about this off the air, and I had made the statement of, and it stinks that, like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes people need to hear it 1 million times, but there's no team that I hate. There's no conference that I hate. I don't hate anybody. I mean, my grandmother's birthday up in heaven, G Mama, her birthday was yesterday, and she taught me to never hate anything. She said, hate is too strong of a word and you can't come back from it. So I think we live in this ultra polarized world that if you take an opinion other than somebody else, then it's their life's duty to just write you messages at 3:37 in the morning. So I don't know if anybody actually did it at that time. They probably will now, but just so you know, joke's on you, my phone's on silent. So but I would say, I mean, I didn't think Notre Dame should get in, and they didn't. And I mean, for all of the reasons. So, I mean, I know I got a ton of hate mail for weeks about that at all hours of the day, but I have nothing against Notre Dame. I like Marcus Freeman outside of the decision I'll talk about in a second. And so, I mean, I like Marcus Freeman. Riley Leonard is a friend. Obviously, I love my guy, Steve Angeli, who came from Notre Dame. I linked up with a lot of Notre Dame fans when I was doing my interviews with Steve Angeli, and they were reposting them. And it's funny how the Notre Dame media knows how to give me credit, but the Syracuse media doesn't. That's so weird. They should teach each other. So, I feel like it hasn't gotten to Syracuse yet that you're supposed to give credit to other people. I don't know if it's trickled here yet because it's a smaller space, but I don't know. I shouldn't call it the mail. Well, I probably should. So
I think I saw something where somebody stole your content and then put it on and then didn't give you any credit. If I'm not mistaken, it was a radio show. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that was on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, I mean, It seems to be a normal thing in Syracuse. But just so if the Syracuse media is watching and listening, I'm happy that I fed your family this week. And I look forward to raising your children with my content because obviously you're not doing enough work. So they don't like me, but they use all my stuff. It's so weird how like I walk into a room, I'm Casper the Ghost, but then you steal Casper's stuff. So if Casper's invisible, how do you know how to get his stuff? And why does no one seem to give me credit? And then the people that steal from me can't look at me when I walk into a press conference. And then when I ask a question, they all look and then they look back. And it's like, what? I mean, I don't understand what is up in the media. And you've been through this and you came to Syracuse for like 5 seconds and had somebody steal something from you. So
yeah, that's true.
But, I'm not meaning to just call out the people in my hometown, but I prefer that they leave because I love my home and I feel like those people are not welcome. So, I mean, if you want to steal things, I guess I go to somewhere in the desert, try to find a diamond, try to find the Cave of Wonders. I mean, I'll probably walk to the Cave of Wonders. It'll open for me and then you'll run inside. But, I don't really understand it, Thomas. And I know that and this is not me firing shots back because of what they do and all this stuff. It's just like, it's plagiarism. And I feel like that, I mean, I've talked to my dad. My dad's a lawyer. He's like, you could sue these people. Like you could be in court for the rest of your life. And I don't want to do that because I don't care about them that much. But I don't care to spend the time. I do care about them. They're all children of God. They're wonderful people, probably somewhere to somebody at some point. But I just feel like it's time to be honest. And I don't know how you feel about it, if you agree with me, but I think it's a really, really disgusting form of humanity when you can't look someone in the eye, can't hold a door open for them, leave them outside in the rain, disrespect them, talk nasty about them, try to push them out of your room, and then use all of their work to sustain yourself. So if you don't need me, then why do you need me? And I don't really care if they need me or not. I would just love it if somebody at some point within the last 22 years could say like, oh, this is where it came from. Because to those of you that don't know, when I go to events, 99.9% of the media is not there from Syracuse, but they tell you that they are. And they post everything as if they were. So when like Thomas and I went to ACC kickoff, there was maybe one other person covering Syracuse from the area besides us. But I wonder how much of that information came back to you from our questions that you didn't know came from us, and you thought that those people were in the room. And I just feel like lying is not okay. And I feel like plagiarism is not okay. And I really don't care what these people think because they hate me anyways. So, I mean, I guess hate on, baby. Merry Christmas. Maybe find like the spirit of Jesus Christ. Remember how he like rose and then died, and we're supposed to be nice to people. I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry because your question was about so many other things, but
it's okay.
I don't know. I mean, like, again, I just feel like it's enough. Like I'm 40 years old and there's people old enough to be my father that are just hateful and they're mean and they're crass and they don't care about anybody. And like, I feel like they would literally just like let someone drown. And I don't understand why. I don't know what would happen to a soul to make somebody so like evil about how they go about their ways. But like, that's the majority of the media, is it not? I mean, it's weird for, you and I to be like, oh, like give people credit and be kind. And, it takes nothing for me to like put up a graphic when I'm talking about something and say graphic courtesy of Syracuse Athletics. I did it today. Right. So, I mean, I want to give credit to the staff that worked on it. And I mean, I have a game tomorrow, so Lord only knows if anybody's going to see this, but there was one guy that was sitting in my chair a couple of years ago that was eating eggs, and he told me he was going to be a minute, and every part of Tulsa King inside of me was right there, and I held it back. But to Sylvester Stallone, much love. But back to Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame, they shouldn't have been in, okay, because they didn't beat the two teams that they needed to beat, and those two teams got in. Ironically, they're going to play each other in the Notre Dame Bowl. It's pretty cool. And, but I mean, after the fact, I posted a few things about what happened with Notre Dame. And what I think Notre Dame fans don't understand, that I have to spell it out again, slower, and like just repeat myself, is I don't hate Notre Dame. I have no qualms with I don't care. Like literally, if I had a child right now and there's 136 schools and they were going to play football, wherever makes them happy. And I don't think people understand that when you do the job that I do, that causes you to work 16 hours on a normal basis, and you're running through all of this stuff, there's I don't just fall into the committee and I agree. That's right. Not how life happens, right? You don't just like, oh my gosh, like all this work just so happened to mysteriously line up. Now, is it always going to line up? No, but Notre Dame shouldn't have been in. Then they acted like a child. And I mean, you go and you see other people that have said this. A lot of us are talking about this. And I actually wrote something about it, and I don't know if you want me to read it. But I can.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's PG, right? PG?
Everything I do is PG.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, here it is. So this is what I wrote. To take your name out of bowl game consideration is not even something I can recall a school even ever doing. To tell every bowl game outside of the college football playoff to not even try inviting you. What a classless and childish move. If you're not putting us in the playoff, then we're going to sit on the floor and ignore you. I'd say this about any team. I'm going to read that part again. I would say this about any, like if it was Miami, I would have said the same thing. I would have said the exact same thing. So I would say this about any team. It just so happens to be Notre Dame setting an unprofessional and selfish precedent. Why make a scene? You had a schedule. You had 12 opportunities to win. You lost to the two best opponents you faced. They're in the CFP. You're out. That's nobody else's fault but your own. Yes. Own it. Compete in a bowl, especially for those finishing up their eligibility, and try for the CFP again next year. I guess this season the name has been changed to Crying Home and Sulkin Irish. Whatever.
I think that's very just, to be honest, because it's one thing like if a coach is fired and guys are transferring and they squeaked into a bowl game or something and they don't want to play, whatever. I still disagree with that, but that's a whole different scenario of, well, the coach is still there, all the players, nobody's really transferring out. You could go to any bowl game you want. They were offered to go into one of the bigger and more pristine bowl games, at least in my opinion. Of what's left. I mean, it's like you're playing kickball or whatever sport you want to play, and you just take the ball and you just go back home and you're crying because you didn't win. At the end of the day, like I understand, fans are upset they lost two very close games, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I mean, there's how many times how can you just act the way that kind of way to a sport where at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about the players. It's supposed to be about fun. It's supposed to be about growth, maturity. And I think Notre Dame really did the opposite of all those things by choosing just not to compete whatsoever in a game. It was really surprising to me. And it makes me question some other stuff because after Notre Dame opted not to do that, we started hearing a lot of other teams suddenly opt not to want to play in bowl games who didn't have any issues, that we just mentioned, the coach wasn't leaving or, their main quarterback wasn't transferring out and yet they still didn't want to play. Baylor's another great example of that where they opted not to play in a bowl game. So I wanted to ask you, like, what are your thoughts about that in general? What are your thoughts about the future of college football bowl games? Is it something that they're going to bring that number down? Do they try to get more, take a more regional based approach with who they select for certain games? So what are your thoughts?
Well, and I want to make clear that there were teams that opted out of bowl games before Notre Dame this season. But the difference between every other team and Notre Dame is Notre Dame was the only one that was up for the college football playoff. None of those other teams were.
Right.
And so and then like it was on the ticker. I won't say what network, but it was on the ticker like right after. It was like they didn't make it. And then on the ticker that night, it's like, no. We made new rules for the future and they're going to be okay. And I was like, you're changing the goalposts because like it wasn't even 24 hours and they're like, no, Notre Dame, don't be mad. We have something for you for next year. And I was
that
like,
was insane. I read that. I was like, what is that?
Right. And you know what? If conferences decide not to play Notre Dame and they take them off the schedule, good. I would too. Make them play like some crap schedule and then let the committee have to decide when Notre Dame's 12-0 for playing like Eastern Illinois of Kentucky, Memphis, and like what that game looks like. And so, I mean, does IUPUI have a team? I don't know, but like it's, and I have nothing against IUPUI. I can never figure out exactly what it means. It's like the Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and then it loses me after that. I'm like, how? So, but yeah, I mean, I think opting out of bowl games could kind of have a domino effect to killing the bowl system. And maybe that's what they want to do. You know, maybe that's the hope, but here, okay. There's no level of sport and no sport in America, high school, college, pro, any sport that I know of, where more than 50% of the teams make it to the postseason, except for college football in the FBS, where it's like 61% or it's like 60.1 or 61. It's like, right. It's a little bit over 60%. And it's like 84 spots for 136 teams, which is wild. And I think, it's a lot, but people don't understand what the bowl system does. It gives you extra practices. Every game is on television. So to all those teams that never get put on television, those schools that never have any of that. So you get exposure, you get money, you get extra practice. Some young guys can get involved.
Yes.
Before the portal, if somebody transferred and they had to sit out the year, they could play the bowl game. So there's like that special rule. And like you're building toward the future. Usually there's gifts for the student athletes as well. So do I want to see the bowls go away? No, because like I've been to so many of them and I appreciate what it is. And yes, okay, if you're not fighting for a national championship, then yeah, it sucks. But okay, it's like, what are you going to do? Like if you're Jack Stonehouse, you're one of the best punters in the country, but your offense can't score. So it's like, it sucks, but like, you know, if Syracuse made a bowl game, are you like Jack Stonehouse and, well, I'm not going to punt because we're not in the college football playoff? Like to me, it's so stupid because again, there's been so many emotional reactions. And this is why you cannot have the window for the portal be at the end of the regular season before the postseason, because people are emotional. I didn't make college football playoff and they're emotional. Yes. And then because coaches can be tampered with and leave at any time, there's that emotion of a player. So when you're coming around the holidays, you're dealing with coaches leaving. You're dealing with you didn't make it to the college football playoff or you didn't make it to the postseason at all. And that's emotional. And people make emotional decisions. We're emotional creatures, okay? Then when you open it after spring practice and you find out you're not starting, emotional decision. They have to do it at a different time where there isn't this crazy emotion. And I don't want to see the bowl system go away. I think there's a lot of value to it. But speaking of emotional decisions, I really hope that Notre Dame's athletic director and brass don't regret the fact that you didn't get in because you didn't beat the best teams you played. Then you attacked Jim Phillips in the ACC.
That was
publicly.
Interesting. Yes.
Publicly.
Yeah.
And what did Jim Phillips ever did? What did the words Notre Dame ever come out of his mouth? Like, what was there any? And here's the thing that's wild. Notre Dame is like, okay, ACC, we're going to be in for every sport except for football. We're going to take a piece of the pie. We're going to take some of your money for every other sport.
Yeah.
Okay. Our moneymaker's football. It's like UConn going, we're going to take our women's basketball team and put it over here on an island, and we're going to give you everything else. And people are like, okay, who cares? Like, so, and that's no disrespect. It's like, I mean, Gino Ariema, like, take UConn women's basketball out of it. Do you want to buy the product? So, I mean, I remember talking to the American when UConn's like, we're going back to the Big East, but we need a place to leave football. So we're going to leave it here in the American when they had like 1 to 3 wins a season. They said, we're going to leave football here, but we're going to bring everything else to the Big East. And Mike Oresco was like, no, if you're going to leave, then leave. You can't like break up with us and leave one box in our apartment. So I think, and it was like the worst box. There's a bunch of like broken stuff and like things that you're like, is this chocolate or is it poo? So like, you know, but it was poo at the time. But I mean, it really was. But I mean, and they left Randy Edsel out to pasture, and that was so disrespectful because he's such a great coach. And, you know, I just feel like the league winners with me on it has become Wake Up Call After Dark. But I just I think
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I think that honestly, the bowl system has so much value, and I don't want to see it go away. And this emotional decision, again, to my point, how does Notre Dame keep their biggest product out of the ACC and then bitch at the ACC that they didn't defend them over an ACC football member? Like,
that's my thing too.
So think about if Jim Phillips did not defend Miami. Right. Think about that. Think if he picked Notre Dame over Miami. Yeah. Think about how Miami would react. They're like, what the, like, we pay our dues. We're here. Yeah. We're full members. Like, you cannot sit here and ask to be given. It would be like Puerto Rico saying, we're not a state, but we want the perks of a state. You know what I mean? It's like, we're a territory and we're with you, but we're not with you. And so like, that's kind of like how I look at Notre Dame. It's like, are you with us or are you not with us? By the way, I love Puerto Rico. And if they were the 51st state, that'd be awesome. But it's like, what is Notre Dame? Like, I just feel like it takes a lot sometimes, but a little bit of take a beat. I don't know anybody that I've talked to in this world of college football or just professionals in general that have thought it was a good idea for Notre Dame to flip the lid, cancel their bowl season, screw over all the guys who finished up their eligibility, and then for their athletic director to lose his mind over the ACC. And he says, well, they've caused permanent damage. Honey, I think you just did that.
Yeah.
And if I was the ACC and I'm Jim Phillips, I'd be like, go kick rocks, man. Like, what are you giving us? Like, okay, your women's basketball team's pretty good. But like, what are you giving us, bro? What about Notre Dame in the last decade, besides football, has been like, wow, thanks. So like, if I'm Jim Phillips, I go, bro, go. Just go. Like, we have 17 members that have dedicated their entire selves to us. And then we have you who screwed over the Big East years ago and said, we're going to do whatever we want over with football. And then we're going to like be in here and you're going to like, see, the problem with Notre Dame is that they think they have the loudest voice in the room, and they think if they cry that everyone will get down on the ground and bow. But the committee didn't bow, and the ACC didn't bow. So honestly, is Notre Dame do they have as much power as they think they do? And I think this is a really good time for college football to do the thing I said years ago. Tell Notre Dame and UConn, because they're the only independents left. Yeah. Tell them if they don't join a conference, they can't qualify. Because how do I have to deal with strength of my schedule, strength of my conference, which is the majority of my schedule? I have to make it to my championship game. I have to try and win my championship game. I can't have a bunch of luck. So like if I'm in the American or the MAC or the Sun Belt, the ACC, I got to have a great non-conference schedule. I got to win those games. I have to have a good conference schedule. I got to win those games. I got to vie for a conference championship. I got to hope if I lose my conference championship, it's only my second loss or first loss of the season. And then Notre Dame gets to sit here and watch everybody. Like, and again, people think I hate Notre Dame. I don't hate Notre Dame. It's just one of these is not like the other. How do you have 136 schools and 134 of them have to all follow these rules, and then Notre Dame and UConn don't, but then UConn's not Notre Dame? So it's really just Notre Dame by itself that doesn't have to ever do what anybody else is doing. And it's like, why? Well, because we want to keep our money. Honey, I want to keep my money too, but sometimes I got to spend it. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Do you think I want to pay for $6 eggs? And I'm not going to say when that was, but it was a few years ago before an election. But I'm just, there was a time where eggs were $6 and now they're like $1.29. So sometimes I buy 80 cartons because that's my life right now. So
I'm just that doesn't make. I just don't understand too, because Notre Dame. It's not like they usually don't try to play the strong teams in.
When
the
do they ever
P4s.
play Miami and Texas A&M?
Like that was a rarity for me. Like and then they lost the games. So it's like, and then you play.
What do they tell you? We only lost cumulatively by 4. Well, that's nice. Like if somebody jumped to grab the bottom of a helicopter and they missed and they fell to their death, do they go to heaven and say, "Send me back into my body? I almost caught it." Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how many guys? Like, okay, what was the dude's name? Kevin Dyson for the Tennessee Titans when he got that touchdown against the Rams, or he almost got the touchdown and he was at the 1 yard line. I mean, do they give him the touchdown because he was almost there?
Oh man, I remember that so vividly too.
You know what I mean? But how many times in sports did somebody almost do something, but they didn't, so they had to try harder next time? I don't see the Titans going, "Well, we're going to forfeit. We're going to tell the NFL we're not playing. We're mad." Like, no, they got up, they played football. You know what I mean? Like, they got beat by a guy who was bagging groceries. Like, that's one of the greatest stories ever. Kurt Warner was like, "I believe in myself. I don't care what anybody thinks." He's at the grocery store. By the way, Kurt Warner, I have to bag my own groceries now because people are lazy and gross. How do you get paid more money and not bag my groceries? So shout out to Kurt Warner, who is a great grocery bagger and a Super Bowl champion. But could you imagine if Kurt Warner had the trophy and then the Tennessee Titans started crying and Jeff Fisher's like, "We're going to forfeit the season next year." And then they went over and took pictures and they're like, "You both get to share the trophy. They have it for the first 6 months. You have it for the next 6 because we're going to play nice in the sandbox." Like, what type of stupid life are we living outside of the fact that this is the repercussion of giving every kid a trophy growing up when you're in 15th place and you were playing soccer, but you were really sticking worms up your nose? You should not have the same trophy as the kid that scored 5 goals. You just shouldn't.
No, and that's actually a good segue to one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is now we find out that Notre Dame does have that little deal in place where if they're ranked at a certain spot, given the certain playoff game, even if the playoff extends to 16 teams, which probably is going to happen at some point, that they still are guaranteed a spot if they rank at a certain spot. And then the only team that has that little clause in an agreement with college football in the playoffs, if you're a P4 program and you hear that, how do you not just tell them to kick rocks and purposely not schedule them?
I would never play them again.
Yeah.
I would never play them. I think the Power Four should band together. If there's a special set, and I know people are going to get mad at me. "Oh, you hate Notre Dame." I don't hate Notre Dame. I would say this about any team. Like, I understand when people are fans of something, they lose their mind. Yeah. And I get because it's tunnel vision. But here's the thing. It's like, okay, let's pretend it was Miami or let's pretend it was Alabama. And they did this. Let's say Alabama was an independent. Okay, I'm going to talk to the Notre Dame fans. I'm going to say Alabama instead of saying Notre Dame to help you get my point. So if the Crimson Tide were independent and they were as good as they are, right, and they had this special set of rules, Notre Dame fans would be like, "Screw them. We're not playing that team. It's not fair." I think if there's a special set of rules for any school, what I just say, any school, any one of them, if there's a special set of rules that this little independent on an island is going to be held with kid gloves. "Oh, you lost 4 games, but you tried." Like, no. So if I'm a honestly, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, SEC, if Notre Dame truly has special rules to suit them, so they're basically going to make it every single year because they make their own schedule, and if they play a shit schedule, they're going to make it because now they're just going to schedule this. They're going to be like, why are we going to play Miami again? Let's just go play, like, I don't even know. Like, let's go play
Miami, Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
There
We
might
beat
not even be bad
Miami.
this year. Yeah.
They'll say they beat Miami of Ohio. But like if you look at, there's a Syracuse, Kansas too. But there's, I mean, the craziness of this, all I would do to respond to this is I would take every one of the power conferences. I don't like calling that the autonomy group. I would take all of the autonomy group. I would get together in a room, because don't think they don't. And I would say, we are not scheduling Notre Dame. Notre Dame is going to have to make their schedule off of the MAC, the Sun Belt, Conference USA, Mountain West, whatever the PAC number is now. Just call it the PAC stole from the Mountain West.
Yeah.
So just call it, the PAC should be called the PAC Raiders. Like, that's it. Raiders of the PAC. Like, I mean, but I mean, take the PAC, take Mountain West, take Conference USA, the Sun Belt, the American, and the MAC. I think that's everybody. And that's your schedule, Notre Dame. That's who you have to play. You're going to have to play Tulane and North Texas and James Madison and Western Michigan and Boise State, who you played this year. So good for you on that. You got a little head start. And you're going to have to play Delaware. But like that's going to be your schedule, because if there's a special set of rules to let you in, like, honestly, at some point, if you're a grown person and you stomp your foot and you go, but mommy, I wanted the toy and he got it, someone's got to reprimand you, because when you're a grown person and you cry and you get your way, I've been there. I helped run a dining room at a restaurant, and there was a 40-plus-year-old person who acted like a 4-year-old, and my boss catered to them. And I looked at my boss and I said, you realize you just took someone who's been stomping their foot for decades and you let them do it again. I said, that was ridiculous. It was like, I said, do you realize how stupid you look for it? And they're like, you better watch it. You're talking to your boss. I was like, I don't care who I'm talking to. The fact that you allowed that to happen gave this person the 857th reason why they don't have to grow up. Yes. So again, I have nothing against Notre Dame. I have something against preferential treatment, special rules, coddling, and just unfair play. And if you take your ball and you go home like a baby, I'm going to treat you like a baby. There's nothing adult about this. And I'm going to say this because this is a compliment. I expected more out of Marcus Freeman.
Yes,
I did. I expect more out of us. Like, I'm Catholic. I love God. What God are you serving when you act like this? What are you showing the world? There's no morals. There's no values. There's no God. There's no responsibility. There's no accountability. You have Jesus right there. You're a campus that supports being Catholic, being Christian, believing in God. And your response to the world is, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to punish you. I'm sorry, where was that in the Bible? When did Jesus say, treat others like you don't want to be treated?
Right.
You know what I mean? I just, and again, like, I don't understand why people can't listen to words and hear that, like, this is not a Notre Dame thing. This is like, if anybody did this, we should be standing up against it. The fact that there's people in America being like, well, I'm totally okay with them opting out. They should have done it. I was like, I don't want to know you. Like, yeah. I don't want to spend time with you. I don't want to believe that you exist. I really don't, because like, why? You know what I mean? Like, if my kid threw a temper tantrum and somebody gave them a lollipop, I would slap that lollipop out of my child's hand and I would tell that adult, you give them another lollipop for crying like that again, and I will pull them from the school.
Yeah, 100%. I feel the same way.
We don't do that here. My parents, do you think I could run a business right now if my mom and dad gave me a cookie every time I complained?
Right.
But that's what we're doing now. So the college football playoff is everyone fight every year to earn a spot, except for Notre Dame.
Dude, that's something I can't believe. And I wanted to, before I let you go, because it is getting a little late, I just wanted to ask you this too, in conjunction of that, is, we know that they're getting this preferential treatment, and now there's talk that that it's likely to extend the playoffs to a 16, and some people are talking potentially a 24, which I think would be kind of insane.
That's what the FCS does, though.
That's very true. So I'm just curious what you're, I guess, to tie it all together, like, what do you think the future is for the college football playoff? How do you think that affects, I guess, because I kind of asked already, I don't want to repeat that aspect of how you think it potentially affects bowl games, but how do you think it affects the scheduling, I guess I'll say, if they do extend that? Because there's already talks about moving the Army-Navy game because of a potential playoff expansion and all of things of that nature. And that game's been the second week in December since I can remember. How do you think that ends up panning out? How do you think the differences, what kind of differences do you think happen going forward?
Well, I do think they're going to expand.
I do too.
Yeah. I'm here. It's funny how it was 14 or 16, and then you just stopped hearing 14. And so I actually came up with a plan, and I think 24, if you're going to have 10 FBS conferences, which includes the Pac, whatever they are, if you're going to, and it's no offense to the Pac, it's just, I mean, you were dead and then you stole from someone after forming a scheduling agreement with them. But good on the Mountain West that said, if you poach our teams, there's a poaching clause and you have to pay for every single team. So good on the Mountain West for figuring that out. But basically, and also you cannot play for the Pac in football unless your name ends in state. So
that's insane.
Go look at it. Look at it. Gonzaga is going to be in the Pac now for basketball. They don't have football, but they have everything else. But I love Gonzaga. Shout out to Mark Few and the crew. But yeah, I mean, so I came up with a system, and if we're going to have 10 conferences and we're going to play conference schedules and conference championships are going to happen, then you have to let every conference champion in. Well, Dan, I don't like it. Okay. If there's 10 FBS conferences, then what is the point of the MAC, the Sun Belt, the American, Conference USA, the Mountain West, and the Pac playing any games in their conference, let alone a conference championship, if they're not going to make it, or if one's going to make it out of 60 teams or whatever it is? So my plan, if you go to 16 and you say every conference champion makes it, that only leaves 6 at-large spots. Right now you have 7. Obviously, when they expand, they want to have more at-large. So I'm a proponent for 24, because if you have 10 conference champions, then you have 14 at-large spots, which is more than the entire field right now, which is 12. And so think about it. If you have 14 at-large spots, so if you have a conference champion from all 10 FBS conferences and you have 14 at-large, you could let in another 5 SEC, have 6 SEC schools. Right. You could have 6 SEC schools. And when you look at that and say, okay, you got a conference champion and 5 other ones, that means you still have 9 other spots to play with. So if you have 5 SEC at large, you have 2 more Big Ten at large, so that's 7. Then you have Notre Dame, so that's 8. And then you have, let's say you have another team from the ACC, so that's 9. You still have 5 more to work with. I mean, think about that. That opens the door to so many opportunities. And why would the SEC and the Big Ten balk at that? Because, I mean, think about how they're going to be the majority of it. Like, let's say if it happened this year and where it was 24, then the Big 12 would have 2. Maybe the ACC would have 2. Then we look at, the SEC would have had 5, so that would have given them 6. So then you say, okay, so that's 5. So that's just 7. And then you say, okay, let's let in 2 more from the Big Ten. So that's 9. And then you look at the rest of the country and you're like, okay, what do we want to do? Notre Dame is 10. So now you have 4 more spots. Do you let a team in? Because you already have the MAC champion, the Conference USA, all those champions. Do you let in North Texas and Tulane? Like, I mean, how do you kind of figure this thing out? But ultimately, 24 is going to provide so many opportunities that who can complain? 16, there's going to be the question of, Do we have conference championships anymore? Do they mean anything? Is there any automatic qualifier? Because if you expand to 16 to protect Notre Dame and make it the SEC Big Ten championship, then like why would the ACC and the Big 12 and the American and all the other conferences agree on that?
Right.
I think the only thing that makes sense is to make it 24 if you're going to have conference champions and you're going to give equitable opportunity to the FBS. If it's all about 2 conferences, then you go to 16 and you say screw everybody. I mean, that's honestly the only way to work the 16 model where it would be fair to every conference is going to take away an at-large bid, and the 7 bids already aren't enough. So why would you go from 7 to 6? And then you're going to hear people complaining like, why is Western Michigan in, but Texas isn't? So, I mean, I think the only fair way to do it, if you're going to not separate the FBS into 2 different levels, because I honestly think that's going to happen. But if you're not going to do that, then you go to 24. Now, I know people might think that I'm crazy, but there's people that I trust very, very much over many, many years. And the only number that they've given me that they like is 24.
Honestly, speaking on it like that, you can get me on board for 24 like that. If you're going to give all 10 conference champions a chance to get their shot in the game. Plus, it still gives you 14 at large. It doesn't necessarily conflict the scheduling issue. You can turn some of those lower bowl games into first round playoff games if you have to. Like there's a lot more you can do with 24 if that's the case. I would actually be a big fan of that, because then it gives the non-autonomy conferences a chance to be put on the map. As we talked about with the bowl games, some of these teams don't necessarily get the national spotlight. It's a way for them to now get the national spotlight, continue to build the program, continue to build program is the wrong word. Continue to build the conference and the programs within that conference, because now kids will see, oh, well, if I go to this MAC school, I can still have a chance to get in the college playoff. It makes things, it increases parity too, in my opinion. And yeah. I think that's a great, I would be a proponent of that. Originally, I wasn't a proponent of the 24, but if it's like that, I don't know how you could not be behind it.
Well, I mean, and I would say this, if we keep doing what we're doing the way we're doing it, then all of the conferences and all of the schools within them outside of the autonomy just become a farm system for the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12. So, I mean, if I'm any conference that's not those 4 autonomy conferences, why would I sign any sheet of paper that continues to make my life hard, continues to get my coaches poached, continues to get my entire school poached, continues to get my student athletes poached? Like, the bow's going to break. So either the FBS agrees as 10 conferences, or the other 6 that are not the 4 autonomy, they tell them, go do your thing. We're going to negotiate our thing. And then it's going to be the model that I predicted years ago, which is college football playoff 1 and college football playoff 2.
Yeah, I hope they don't. I mean, I already feel like they're trying to split up the autonomy and non-autonomy conferences.
Why would you call yourself autonomy? You know what that means? It means self-governing.
Yes.
Okay, they literally told the NCAA, we're existing beneath you, but we don't need you. So it's a very confusing, and it's a legislative term. I mean, this is legal stuff, folks. This is not just like the word power that somebody made up. Right. This is legal stuff. Okay, being the son of a lawyer and sitting with a commissioner about this, I said, so you don't just randomly choose the word autonomy. You chose that. So is there the thought of breaking away? And many years ago, this commissioner said to me, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Not right now, but it's not like it's not something that they know. So when you tell the NCAA we're the autonomy group, you're essentially telling the NCAA we're on your boat, but we've lowered our raft, and at any given time, we're going to get our paddles and we're going to leave. And if the NCAA doesn't do what we want them to do, we will continue to throw that raft into the ocean to scare you into doing what we want you to do.
Right. That's so curious to see how this all ends up shaking out, because I mean, I don't. Maybe it's too much to say that the future of the sport's at stake in that regard, but it'll certainly change the dynamics of it greatly if that ends up being the case. And then before I get you out of here, I just wanted to hear your thoughts about this upcoming week's slate of college football playoff games. I mean, is there? I guess diving into all of them would be a little too much, so I'm going to ask. Who is your favorite to come out of this first round, and who is, I guess, your dark horse?
Well, the Battle of Notre Dame Devours is going to be an interesting game. I'm just trying to have fun with you guys. Just relax. So. The thing is like, if you go and watch earlier this year, if you go and watch like my show, I spent so much time with Notre Dame and I had so much fun talking with the coaches and talking with the student athletes. Again, Riley Leonard is a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is wild that like I take an opinion and people think like I hate the school because it's so crazy. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. By the way, huge Mike Bray fan. Like, I am a huge Mike Bray fan. Do you understand? I'm such a Mike Bray fan that when they played my hometown of Syracuse, I was like wanting Syracuse to win in the comfort of my own home, but I wasn't mad if it was Mike Bray that won because I love him as a coach and I think he's just fantastic.
Right.
So, and I miss him coaching and I wish he would come back and I wish he would, I would rather him have been there forever and a day. Now Micah Shrewsbury, I got all love for him too. And we've had great conversations as well. So again, peeling back all this, got a lot of respect. So I am kidding. Don't get weird. But the Aggies playing the Hurricanes, I honestly think that's a toss-up. I think Miami's going to win because there's a reason why they keep showing the 30 for 30 about Miami getting spurned like in history when they had the BCS and Miami beat both of the teams above them and they didn't play for the championship. So, I just feel like Miami is going to take – I think Miami's – I honestly think that they're arguably one of the most dangerous teams in this thing. And so I'm going to pick the Hurricanes. I have a lot of respect for Mike Elko, spent time interviewing him as well. And obviously I respect the Aggies. They had a weaker SEC schedule this year, and I think Miami has something to prove. And I really I feel bad for anybody that played Miami in the first round. And it just so happens to be Texas A&M, and it took them – they had to come back from down 27 against South Carolina. If Miami's up by almost 30, like they're going to score 50, they're going to score like 52 and just make you pay for it the whole game. But yeah, so I think Miami's going to win that one. I really want to look at that 5-12 like the NCAA tournament and be like James Madison because Oregon had such a weak schedule. And I like Oregon, and I like Dan Lanning. Like, I really do. I can't see James Madison ultimately winning the game, but I just feel like Oregon is a little smoke and mirrors until they prove themselves. Like, their best win was over Iowa. Basically, if you beat Iowa and you had 2 losses or 1 loss or less in the Big Ten and you beat Iowa, you got in. Yeah. So I don't know why like Iowa was like the litmus test, but shout out to the Hawkeyes. I mean, a lot of respect for, anybody that played them, and they were a good team this year too. But so I think Oregon and I think Miami, and I think Tulane's got a shot.
That would be interesting. I against Ole Miss, I do too.
I know Ole Miss blew them out earlier on in the season. But remember what Notre Dame fans say, we're not the same team in the beginning that we are at the end. So I would say that about, hey, if you're going to say about one, you got to say about everybody. Yeah. And because remember what they said? They're like, Notre Dame got better, Miami got worse. I'm like, what did Miami lose 5 games in a row? Like, so I was like, how did Miami get worse? And they're like, well, they lost to SMU. SMU is a really good team. They were tied for second place to be in the ACC championship. And if they had gotten in and they had won the thing, they probably would have been in with Miami. So I think Tulane's got a shot because Ole Miss, like you change one thing about a locker room It can change the whole dynamic of a team. And we're not talking about one thing. We're talking about a lot of things. So either they're going to respond like, man, we're happy Lane is gone and we're going to prove we can do it without him, or Tulane's going to, catch some fire here and make it interesting. But I think Tulane is they're a dark horse to me. The game that I don't like it because I want them, because they should both be in the next round, is Alabama, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The fact that they're like, all right, Alabama, you got in, but you got to play one of the 3 teams that beat you in the first round, and you got to go on the road. Like, why are we punishing Alabama? So I think, to me, that stinks that Alabama's in that place. I think that's the toughest game. It's going to be my favorite one to watch, but dude, I like, it's going to be the 11th hour before I pick that game. Like, I'm picking Miami, I'm picking Oregon. I hope James Madison gives them a show, and I'm actually picking Tulane. So, outside of that, Alabama, Oklahoma, if Alabama shows up the way they did in the SEC title game, Oklahoma is going to blow the doors off of that game.
Yeah. Tyson did not look great.
But if Alabama comes out and plays like a tough game, then we're going to see how well, whose defense is better. But I don't know. I feel like I'm leaning toward Oklahoma, but Indiana's going to get a test. Like, they have to beat an SEC school in the quarterfinals no matter what. So I am kind of excited to see that, because, I want to see – I was waiting for Indiana to get a big-time win, and then they beat Ohio State. And I said, hey, the moment they do it, I will respect that victory. And they did it. And dude, from the first 3 seconds into the game, I was sitting there watching it with my dad, and I was like, holy shit, I really like the way he's throwing the ball. I like the way I love watching Mendoza. So I'm happy he won the Heisman. I'm happy he talks about God. I'm happy he doesn't hide his emotion. I love that he's like a big kid, crying and being in the moment and letting himself be who he is and being confident. I got a lot of respect for what they're doing. So again, like Indiana fans, at the beginning of the year, I wasn't calling you out. I was calling out your schedule.
Right.
I said, play a good team and I'll respect it if you win. And they did. And I respect it. So yeah, I'm hoping the first round's closer than last year. But I feel like Miami definitely. I just feel like there's gonna be going buck. There's gonna be I don't want to call it a reckoning, because that's only for Sean Combs. But I think Miami's dangerous, and I don't think they're as dangerous as 50 Cent when he feels disrespected. But I do think that I don't know what Diddy did to 50 Cent, but holy crap. And I thought Cat Williams was a dog, man. Damn. So, but Cat told us, though.
He did warn people. Yes.
He said, ain't nobody safe. I'm about to tell you about everybody.
Yeah.
And I was watching him talk about something with another singer, and the stuff he said, I was like, oh man, that's ridiculous. But yeah, Alabama, Oklahoma is the best game. And I don't know. I don't have a dog in the race either side of that game, but right. I feel like I'm going to be wrapped up in a Snuggie, because it's going to be such a nerve-wracking game, because I want to see both of them win. But, I hope that James Madison and Tulane give them some work, and I hope they challenge. And I think Miami is going to be a beast. I really do. And that's not disrespecting Texas A&M. I think Miami has only heard everybody talk about why not Notre Dame. So I feel like it's everything they had. It's kind of like you took Bruce Banner and you injected him with gamma radiation, straight to his chest. And I don't think Notre Dame realized that Miami's going to Hulk out, because they're so sick and tired of hearing that they don't deserve to be there over the team that they beat.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely
They're make it interesting. I really do.
Yeah, it's got to give them a chip on their shoulder, right? Because you hear that, you hear all the gossip.
If they win, then they play Ohio State.
That would be a crazy game, actually.
That game would be so wild. So I don't know if I answered any of your questions tonight. I hope that I did. But I kind of blacked out, and I think it's it's the iced pumpkin spice chai from Starbucks. I love it too much, and I get the big one. I get the venti, and because I've learned. I told what I said. The lady didn't even laugh today. I went through the drive-thru, and I said, "I'm going to try and do this right." I said, I want a venti iced pumpkin. I go, no. Let me do it the right way. I said, I'm going to say it the way it's supposed to be. I said, I want an iced pumpkin spice chai venti. And then they put it on the thing, and it's not pumpkin spice. It's like pumpkin cream. And I was like, son of a bee, I was so close. But Starbucks has its own language. Like, I think there's English, there's American English, and then there's Starbucks. And it's a different way to speak. By the way, my drink costs $7.29, and it's worth every penny. So
I might have to try that.
Dude, it's so good, and they still have it, and it's not on the menu. It's like you go up to them and you're like, do you have pumpkin spice? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, give me like 12 of those. But yeah, and you have to drink them the first day. Don't put them in the fridge. They get gross. But I want to be clear before I get off the show. The only reason why I spoke about the media is because I would not raise my children to do what they do. And I think it is very disheartening to be treated like an outcast and to be literally like stepped over, it feels like at times. And at the same time, to like, you see your work show up and come out of the mouths of the people that can't even look you in the eye when they walk by you.
Right.
And I just feel that like, I've been at events where there's just a few of us and I'm standing next to somebody and they've been at years of events. Not a word, not a look, nothing. And I don't know what would compel a human being to not be able to face someone unless they know they did something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I've told you and you've seen it too, and I've told you about it. It's happened to me more times than I can count as well. Happened to me at the ACC championship game with a Bill Belichick question I had with him, and everyone was stealing that and not giving me credit and all this stuff. So I 100% understand how that feels. It's you think there's some type of integrity because that's what the profession's supposed to have, but there really is very few people who have those qualities to them, and it's disheartening. But that's why I also like this profession also introduced me to people like you and like-minded people at the same breath. So I do try to at least look at that positive of things, because obviously it's been a pleasure knowing you, and I think we became good friends because of it. And so I am thankful in that regard, at least. But 100%, man, the majority of the media is backstabbing at best, is I guess what I would say. Because there's a lot worse that they do too.
What do they say? If God was reading most of your Instagram stories this Christmas, he would be sending you a dictionary and a Bible.
Yeah, 100%.
and I think that's been probably the toughest thing that I never thought getting into the media, that I would like walk into a room and never be treated like I've earned my keep. But then you also realize, is your worth in the eyes of God, or is your worth in the eyes of man? Because remember that if your worth is in the eyes of man, Jesus would be worthless, because in the eyes of man, he was worth killing. So there is this like crazy notion that if you're trying to do everything right and you have a clear conscience and you do things with a pure heart and good intentions and you're hated for it, and you're treated unfairly because of it, that you're actually following God because he did it the right way and he got condemned for it. So if you doing it the right way gets something stolen, or you don't get looked at, or they act like you're not even there, or they disrespect you, then in its own unique way, it's kind of like God saying, keep going. So, I mean, I don't wish bad on any of them. I pray for all of them. I honestly want the best I want them to have families and be healthy and live to be 150. I just want them to put my name on my work. That's literally all I'm asking for. But as my mom told me, she goes, you know why they steal all your stuff all the time? Because they know your work. They know the value of it. They know that they never have to check it. They know that it's good. They know that it's true. They know that it's right the first time. So she said, in all honesty, Daniel, they steal your work all the time because they know that you do your work. So they know if they take it, it's going to be accurate.
Right.
And I mean, I guess that's a compliment, but I think I should get everybody's Christmas bonus.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Some of the stuff, the thing that I specifically saw, I was very disgusted by just from them stealing it. But I'm not gonna. No point in naming their names because it's not even worth that, to be honest. And I don't like to preach too much negativity, but I do appreciate you coming on, man. I do love talking to you all the time, and I'm sure we're gonna see each other and catch up again soon. But before I get you out of here, let everybody know where they can find you at, your social media, what you have coming up next, and all good things going your way.
Well, you can find my work at every major Syracuse outlet. You can also find it on wakeupcalldt.com. I said, I'm just going to throw off everybody. And when they say you have to say your name and where you're from, I'm just going to name the businesses that steal from me just to watch and be like, what? I don't work here. I mean, my work's here. I mean, I'm a Ghost Rider, I guess. So, and I actually like that character in Marvel. So I guess I'll accept being a Ghost Rider. But yeah, so wakeupcalldt.com is where you'll find it all. Facebook at wakeupcalldt, X at calldt, Instagram at wakeupcall_DT. And we are live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. We're worldwide. We're on YouTube and Facebook, both.com/wakeupcalldt. And our internet streaming radio now has over 2,000 episodes. Nice. And it's wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. If you forget all of this, you look up Dan Tortora, Tortora. You'll find all of our work, all of the avenues. We get added to stuff. Sometimes I'm surprised. I go to Google and I'm like, oh, we're on that channel now. That's cool. So yeah, so it's been really nice to see that channels have picked us up and given us an opportunity and put us out there. And I will say two things before I go that are more important. Number one, I shouldn't say they're more important, but I'm very excited that tomorrow at 9:45 a.m. Eastern time on December 17th, my Aunt Dorothy's birthday, I will be unveiling a segment with a Syracuse football face that I've never done this before. I don't know anybody that's ever done something like this before. It is unique. It's crazy awesome. Like, I'm so excited. It's going to be like sitcom-esque that every episode has its own unique name. It has a unique intro. I put up kind of like some subliminal messaging of a football and the Italian flag and a microphone with a headset, but it gets unveiled Wednesday, December 17th, worldwide at 9:45 a.m. Eastern time. I cannot wait for you to see who it is, what it's called, and what we're going to do with this. This is an unprecedented thing that I have never seen in my 22 years of broadcasting. And we will unveil this very unique, original show that is extremely hard for me to not tell you what it is right now. And then the other thing for me to tell you, which is incredibly important, is this Saturday on ABC at 4 p.m. Eastern time, the Big Sky Conference has two teams in the Final Four of the FCS playoffs. Please make sure you go and watch Montana State. Former Syracuse quarterback Justin Lamson is the quarterback of Montana State, kicking butt out there. So make sure you watch that game. Also, make sure you watch the other side of it, which I believe is on ESPN, and that is Illinois State and Villanova. So the Dakotas are out. Montana knocked out South Dakota and South Dakota State themselves. Yeah. So this is a really cool Final Four. The Big Sky Conference commissioner was just on the show. You could check him out on my social media. You'll be able to watch the show back. But Montana is going to be rocking. And Illinois State, shout out to the Redbirds. And Villanova, who is actually going to be joining the Patriot League after this season, they're having themselves a tremendous year. So make sure while you're watching the CFP that you take some time to watch the FCS semifinals that will decide who's playing in the national championship. And knowing that the Big Sky 100% will have half of the national championship is really cool for everything that Tom Wistersill, the commissioner of the Big Sky, we talked going into the season. He told me everything he was thinking, everything he was hoping for, and who they are. And then the teams went and backed it up. So shout out to Montana and Montana State for making things really, really interesting as the Grizz will take on the Bobcats for round 2. Their last game happened a few weeks ago, and Montana State won by 3, 31-28. So very, very excited to see that game, and Illinois State and Villanova. So I just wanted to shout out the FCS because they deserve it.
Yeah, 100%. Villanova is another school that could potentially take the jump to the FBS sooner than later, which
Syracuse would crap themselves.
That'd be very interesting. Yeah, and Delaware would be waiting for them too. That'd actually be pretty fun.
How about this? They bring their football up, then Villanova comes to the ACC. They kick out Notre Dame, and then they have Villanova for every sport. And now Syracuse has to play Villanova, which, by the way, is a perfect time to play. If I'm Syracuse basketball, I would be scheduling Villanova. They're getting better, but like the last few years, because they didn't have Jay Wright.
Right.
And Syracuse stopped scheduling Villanova. I was like, what are you doing? So, but Jay Wright was such a pain in the butt to go up against, one of the greatest coaches that I've ever interviewed and been around. So Jay Wright, if you ever want to come back and coach, I don't even care if you coach a rec league. If you want to come back and coach basketball, I will go wherever you are. So happy I got to interview him before he retired. But yeah, shout out to everybody out there that supports the league winners. Continue to do it. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa. Those are the 3 I know. But I'm celebrating Christmas, and I love Jesus Christ. I will never hide my love for God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Notre Dame, it's all in good fun. So if you want to hate on me, thank you for boosting my ratings. If you want to show love, thank you for boosting my ratings. But just know that I love and respect you, and I really hope you make the playoff fair and square next year. And it sucks that you didn't win these 2 games. I would have loved to see Notre Dame. I had to make a tough call in my, analysis, and the committee did too. So just kind of know where that's at and know that we have nothing but love for you. And outside of that, man, I just pray that as we come to the end of this year and the start of a new year, that people live with integrity, responsibility, accountability, and that people like you and I that work our tails off and sometimes make ourselves sick for how much we work. I just hope that our work will, by the grace of God, always that the truth will always rise to the top, and that no matter what anybody tries to do, we got the ace in the hole. And if I know anything about God, he never lets the truth lie quiet. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I appreciate your kindness, man. I really do. It's always a fun time talking to you. I'm sure we always text, so I'll make sure to give you a little shout during the holidays as well. I hope yours ends up being as great as I hope mine will be. And hey, man, until next time, I appreciate you coming on, my friend.
Yeah, sorry that I kept everybody up late. So,
hey, man, it's a pleasure talking to you, man. It's always a fun time. I appreciate you, bro.
God bless. I guess today I got to be the Cat Williams of the league winners. So I'm so happy to get to do that. And what did Cat Williams say? If you don't have haters, you're not doing anything right. Yeah. So, just welcome all the stuff, folks. Please chase your dreams. Chase your dreams. Be kind to each other. Be good. Don't be afraid to climb the mountain. And when you get to the top of the mountain, don't feel bad that you're up there for the people that did not decide to climb it. Never let yourself fall off of it. If you're going to descend off the mountain, do it with God. Don't do it because somebody pulled you. And always, always, always remember that your spirit should always take the place of your ego. So be kind, be courteous, be good. I was real tonight about a lot of things, and I hope you can respect it, folks, because I would say it about anybody if it wasn't me. Honesty, integrity, kindness, and just plain good old humanity belong in this world. And the more that people stay quiet, that see the hate and the disgustingness of this world, the more we shut up about it, the more it's going to happen freely. And that's why I felt like I had to talk today. And Thomas, I hope you can respect and appreciate the fact that I'm not going to be silenced and submissive to a world that has some shadows. I'd like to kind of pull the curtain back and let everybody see it.
Yeah, 100%. I feel the same way. And that's the thing, man. Is that bad things only happen. I'm gonna very much botch the quote right now, but something about bad things not happening because good men don't let bad things happen. That's all I'm gonna say. If you're a good man, I'm botching the quote. I apologize. Of course, it's slipping my mind now, which I had it and I lost it. But bad men come in place when good men do nothing. I think that's probably closer to the phrase. And in this instance, especially in media, I think that's more relevant than ever when a lot of people who just want to take advantage. You know what I mean? They're not genuine people. They just want to take what's credit for them and make that their pedestal to something that they can go on. And it's just unfortunate to see, and unfortunate that it's happening to you consistently, because I've been there, and it's definitely not fun in the slightest.
If you build a kingdom on bodies, eventually those bodies will wake up and pull you down.
Yes.
That's
100%.
reality. By the way, Shane, if you're watching and listening, I hope that you sent it. Hopefully you got everything postmarked and sent to me so I get it before Christmas, so that in that corner right here, I can have my Shane Barrett poster that I always wanted.
I'm sure he's gonna love that. He was either watching or he's going to watch. If not, I'm going to make sure that he sees it. But Dan, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah, and the only thing is, the poster that you send me, you better be wearing your Alex Golish pajamas.
Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna like that. I actually wanted to talk to him about that today, but he wasn't up for it. So
yeah, he wasn't up for it because he was getting a sandwich at Alex Golish's spot by accident. So
just happened to be there.
Yeah, all I'm going to say to Alex is, you might just want to hire, an Italian for some extra security. Shane's a good guy, but will he lick the glass if you touched it? Potentially. I mean, that's all I'm going to say.
Oh my God, he's gonna love that. Oh.
I love. By the way, Shane and I did the chaos theory, and it happened. And we did that when you guys were on my show on Wake Up Call. Shane and I accurately predicted the entire chaos theory, which was insane. We did it before the committee picked it. So shout out to Shane for joining me in the chaos.
Yeah. Both of you guys dived in there. I was hoping for it, did not expect it, but I'm always happy to be surprised.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything, and Merry Christmas to you once again.
I appreciate you. You take care, man.
All right, man. Take care.
That was my good friend Dan Tortora. Make sure you guys find him on Twitter/X at CallDT, the letter D and the letter T. If not there, you can find him at wakeupcalldt.com. He does a live show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. He also probably does it a little bit later than that. Great stuff, great follow. Make sure you guys are following his content and following along. Does great stuff, not just for Syracuse football, but college football, college sports, and in the western side of the state of New York. Hey, man, it's been a great show. I'm very happy for all the guests that have come on today. I truly appreciate it. If you're listening right now, I forgot to mention this throughout the show because that's how crazy it's been. Live show. You could always comment in on the show. Normally we get to it live on the show. If not, if you watch it after the fact, we'll get back to you within 24, 48 hours, and we'll make sure to get back to you on the next episode of the show. If you're watching it on Facebook, make sure you click that like button. It's completely free. Share it as well to all your friends and family. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. It's completely free, helps out the channel. Make sure you like, and I said comment. And if you're on X/Twitter, hitting the like button, hitting that share button, retweet, it all works perfectly. But this is Thomas Christopher, the League Winners, and I'm signing off.